And welcome back to another episode of the Oner Podcast, the podcast where we break down and review films all in one big, long, unbroken take. I'm Austin Archer, and with me, as always, is my childhood next-door neighbor and lifelong best friend,
Kramer, England.
All right. We are going back in time. The world has
Yes.
Superman fever a little bit right now.
Yep.
And social media is ablaze with chat of James Gunn's new Superman film. We just did our big 2-hour long breakdown of I
Yep.
think our episode was longer than the movie, actually.
I think it's close.
Yeah, it's close. And you can check that out on the channel if you haven't seen that yet. But we thought, anytime a Superman movie comes out, everyone's going to compare it to
Yes.
other Superman films, and specifically the movie we're talking about today. It's inevitable, but also, like, to a certain degree, like, every superhero movie made after 1978 is constantly compared to this film.
Yes.
You know?
I was thinking about it. The superhero movie, you could make a really, really big argument for the fact that superhero movies would not be where they are today without this movie and without Richard Donner. And I think you'd have a pretty good argument with that one.
I think you mix what Richard Donner does in this movie with what Tim Burton does with Batman in 1989.
Yeah.
They're about roughly 10 years apart, but you mix sort of the stylistic palette of those two films, and you get a lot of what is seen in modern superhero films, if they're going to lean into the camp and the fun, they're pulling more from the Donner world, and if they're going to lean into more of like the trying to make it feel, like it's got
grit,
darkness and grit, then they're pulling more from what Burton was doing. But both films also have elements of the other, where like there's some darkness in this Superman movie that I had forgotten and wasn't expecting, and some there's
a lot of camp in Batman 1989.
Yes, absolutely. I will say this, so one of the big reasons why we wanted to do this is because I've been saying pretty comfortably now that James Gunn's Superman is my favorite Superman movie, and it's one of my favorite superhero movies I've ever seen. And so I wanted to go back and watch this movie to go, well, it's been a long time since I've watched Richard Donner's Superman. Does it hold up in the way that I think a lot of people assume it does? Because I see it just online chatter around superhero movies, people have a really hard time letting this one go. And you're right that you can make the argument that the modern superhero era owes a lot to this film. But if you go back and just sort of evaluate the film on its own merits, even trying to, as much as you can, sort of correct for like the time, you have to be like, hey, it's 1978, the popular films are like The Godfather and Rocky and Star Wars, and and think about like the socio-political climate of when, and like, okay, and this movie comes out, when you try to adjust for what was possible at the time, what filmmaking was at the time, what special effects in filmmaking were at the time, and just try to evaluate the film on its own merits, not comparing it to the rest of the superhero genre for the next 40 years. Even then, I will say my experience watching this movie was like, this movie would get absolutely killed by the internet if it were released today. And I know, like, and not just like effects aside, like filmmaking, like technical filmmaking aside, the story and the script of this film would get annihilated by the internet if it were released in 2025.
Yeah, there's not much of a like an arc, and there's not much of like there's not much of a structure as far as compared to today's movies. But I mean, even for that time, I mean, the 70s were pretty loose with their structures, and it worked a lot of times. Like The Godfather is much more different than most movies today, but it works really, 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 really well. This movie, I don't think it worked as well, because it was like, I mean, there's like a 40-minute prologue and then like we get into the movie and it's like,
And even
when is this
then,
movie gonna start? Like what?
even
Like,
even after the 40-minute prologue, we're waiting for like Clark Kent shows up,
yeah,
and we do
yeah,
like 30 minutes of Clark Kent, it
yeah.
feels like. And it's
Oh
like,
yeah, it's a long time.
and we're just like, is Superman in this movie? And like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it took forever. And I mean, even though overall I really like the movie for what it is and appreciate it, the structure of it all was really like, and the pacing, even though the pacing is very consistent, it is very, very slow. A very, very slow movie. They're like dragging out scenes. And again, this is kind of the 70s of it all. But I was like, all right, let's move this along a little bit.
from
Like keep
from
going.
the start, like from the you're right. The pacing is consistent, but it is consistently slow. From
Yes.
and again, we have a very it's hard to watch a film like this because we have a modern sensibility and
Yes.
about pacing.
Yeah.
But from the very beginning on Krypton, I'm going, okay, let's go. They're just it's like we just linger
Mhm.
on certain shots for a while where you go,
Yeah.
yeah, I got it. You can move on.
Yeah,
Yep,
like,
move on.
"Oh, what's gonna happen here? Something's else gonna happen because they haven't cut yet." And then they cut, and I'm like, "Oh, nothing happened."
Nope. Like, I mean, we can jump into our breakdown here, but just of the plot. But even in the context of movies from the 70s, like when I go watch A New Hope, I don't feel that way. I'm not sitting there going like, "Oh my goodness, get like
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
go." Like the movie starts and we're right in the thick of it,
Oh,
and
yeah.
there's always something happening. And even like I watched Rocky a couple years ago, the first Rocky
Yeah.
movie,
Yeah.
and there's certain things that don't hold up to modern standards. Like Rocky's first kiss with his wife is a little like
Yeah.
weird. She's
Yeah.
like trying to leave his apartment and he just
And
like
he's like,
won't let
"No,
her leave.
stay." Yeah.
He's like, yeah, no, you gotta stay. Like he's
Yeah,
like, go
yeah.
kiss me.
Yeah.
She's like this shy woman who doesn't want to kiss him, and he's like, come on, kiss me. I'm Rocky, and
Yeah, yeah, it
yeah,
was
and
weird. It's like,
yeah,
"Oh."
it's a weird scene to watch
Yeah.
in the 21st century. But the movie itself, I was just amazed at like how heartfelt the performance was from Sylvester Stallone, how grounded the film felt, how real it felt, how
Mhm.
I just was like, I don't know, this movie still really works on a lot of levels. And this movie for me, I get it might just be coming back to it with this, but I feel like a lot of people on the internet who were like, that's the definitive superhero movie, that's the definitive Superman. What I'm saying with this episode is go back, go watch it. Go watch it and tell me you would rather watch that movie than James Gunn's Superman. Like like
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
and that is a more like thrilling experience. It's not to say that there's not stuff here that's not cool. There's
Yeah.
stuff in
Yeah.
this Richard Donner movie that is still like fun and exciting and kind of inspiring and,
Yeah.
but it is like it's slow. It's structured weirdly. There's weird stuff with the characters, all of them. There are
Yes.
entire like you talked about how you felt like James Gunn's Superman movie only had 3 real characters, and I'm like,
Right.
I like this movie's like Jimmy Olsen's just like he's there,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
and he's just kinda like, "Hey," like,
Yeah.
I I I don't know, I guess this movie even more so felt to me like it was Lex Luthor, Superman, and Lois Lane, and who are the only characters that have any kind of dimension to them, but we spend a lot of the runtime with other people who are just sort
Right.
of like like they just need to be there because I don't know, like the lore of the character, they're a part of it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a hard, it's an older movie, but there are some good yeah, like you said, there's some weird stuff in here too. Like, I don't know, maybe we should get into the plot breakdown because there was some stuff that I was like, what is going on? Like, what is
There's
happening
several things
here?
that I burst out laughing because I couldn't
Oh,
believe it. Like, I there were several parts
there's
that I was like,
one
"What?"
there was one Yeah,
I
there's
bet I
one
bet we're
scene.
thinking of the same part. I bet we're
I
both thinking of the same part. I
I
paused
hope
it and
so.
yelled to my girlfriend, and I was like, "You need to come in here and watch this." I was like, "I need to show you what they just did in this movie."
I hope it's the same too, because when it happened, I started laughing so hard I had to pause the movie to just like rewind it because I was laughing so hard.
I
Anyway,
think we might be thinking of there's 2 parts
is it
I'm thinking of.
okay? One of them is the when he saves the cat.
Yes, it's the one he says the cat.
It
I
was
laughed so hard. We'll get there. It's so good. It's
yeah,
so
yeah.
good.
We'll get there.
And
We'll get there.
and I thought of you. I was like, "I hope he heard that. I hope he
Oh,
heard
I
that."
I thought of that. I the exact same thing about you too. I was like, I really hope that we could talk about this because this is
Yeah.
the funniest thing I've seen in a movie in a long time. So inappropriately.
It's so good, and it's, like, so 1978. It's, like,
Yeah,
so, like it's anyway,
yeah,
um,
yeah,
okay, but like we said, pacing,
yeah,
Superman doesn't show up in this movie till, like, it's, like the movie's, like, an hour and 35 minutes, or 2 hours, sorry, 2 hours
yeah,
and 35 minutes. It's quite long, and Superman doesn't arrive in this movie till, like, over an hour into the film,
yeah.
and, like, you think about Batman '89. It was made again, like, they're shooting the movie, like, 10 years after this movie comes out. This
Yes.
movie is still very much a part of the cultural fabric of filmmaking.
Mhm.
Superman 2 and 3 have come out, and, like, it's this series is very much so, it
Yeah.
kind of the blueprint for superhero movies at the time, and that
Right.
movie opens with an action sequence with Batman. Like,
Yes.
from the jump,
Yeah.
Batman is in the movie, and Tim Burton is like, "We're hitting the ground running?"
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that
this
was,
movie yeah,
this movie's not really well, sorry, Batman is not 89 is not an origin story. This is pretty much an origin story, but it's kind of like an introduction story, like, this is Superman's introduction to the world is kind of how I see the movie as a whole. But
yeah,
yeah, Batman 89, they were like, "We don't wanna do an origin story, we wanna just get into it," which actually worked really well for that movie, and that's the approach that they took for James Gunn's Superman, is we're
and I
not
think
doing an
that
origin story.
I don't think that we wanna see this what you realize when you watch, Superman 1978 is actually how much more in common with Man of Steel it has than James Gunn's
Yes,
film.
yes. They
Like, the
start almost exactly the same.
the first like the first full act of the film is almost beat for beat the same movie as
Yes.
far as the plot points. Like,
Yeah.
and so I was sitting there watching it going, man, everyone sort of thinks of Man of Steel as this big tonal departure from the Richard Donner films,
Yes.
and that James Gunn was returning us back to that. But plot wise, like, almost even there's even lines that David Goyer's script for Man of Steel has,
Yeah. Yeah.
like almost word for word lines from this Richard
Yeah.
Donner film.
Oh, yeah. I thought
Yeah.
the exact same thing, and I thought I was like, "Wow, I am surprised," because I had seen Superman before, but it is like you said, it's very much beat for beat Man of Steel. Like it's but Man of Steel. This is the thing though that I thought as well. It just reminded me how much I love the opening of Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Like, it is so good, which
Yeah.
is I think most people agree that the opening of that movie is amazing. Just, like,
Yeah.
awe-inspiring, right? And the rest of the film, I love it, but it doesn't seem to live up to that standard in many ways, right? But it was so surprising at, like, how similar these 2 movies are, and then you have Marlon Brando, and then you have Russell Crowe, who, like,
Yeah.
also just 2 amazingly gifted actors who are
And
playing these
Bradley Cooper.
and Bradley Cooper.
And Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, that it
Yeah.
so it's kinda crazy the 2 how like you said, how similar the 2 movies are. It's almost like Man of Steel is just an updated version for that for the first part of that movie, and this felt very,
Yeah.
very similar.
Yeah, if you've seen Man of Steel, it opens on Krypton with sort of while Krypton is sort of just eating itself from the inside out, the planet is sort of dying. and the planet's red sun is, like the planet's
Mhm.
core. In Man of Steel, it's the planet's core is going to like explode,
Yeah.
but in Superman 1978, it's that the red sun of Krypton is going to explode and kind of consume the planet.
Mhm.
And but while this is both in Man of Steel and in Superman 1978, while this is all happening, Jor-El is involved in a hearing to
Yeah.
try the seditious General Zod and his kind of co-conspirators who are trying to overthrow the Kryptonian society and usher in a new world order.
Yeah.
And you know, I feel like we see the scenes are very similar, to be
Oh, yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
These trial scenes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
they even, in Man of Steel, Zod isn't captured. He tries to take over the council or whatever, and then they are able to catch him. But yeah, but the accusations that they make to each other, because Zod is basically in this movie, he tries to appeal. So in 1978, Superman, uh, Jor-El is in this council, and everybody finds these three Kryptonians guilty of sedition and all that stuff, and he's the final vote. And Zod is like, Jor-El, you used to be my friend, and like you used to agree with me. And in Man of Steel, he says the same thing. He's like,
Mhm,
come and be with me again. Like we share the same views, which they do, which is what makes Zod and Jor-El such interesting characters. Anyway, but it was the exact same, Zod in
mhm,
78, Superman is like, join me and you'll be second only to me. And then he's like, he says they're guilty and he's like, you will kneel before me or whatever he says. And Terrence Stamp, which
mhm.
is weird that they have this in the movie as well, because it doesn't come up until Superman 2.
I was surprised actually when this movie started out and Zod was there with his two kind of generals. I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, are they in this movie?" I was like, "I thought they were in Superman 2." And
Yeah.
I was surprised that in 1978 they were already laying the groundwork for the sequel at the
Yeah.
beginning of this film.
Well, this is interesting. They were filming Superman 1 and 2 at the same time.
Oh, interesting.
And so Richard Donner was filming both of the movies at the same time, and they eventually ran into a lot of production troubles and financial issues and things like that. It's a big thing, but they basically kind of half or three-fourths of the way through filming Superman 2, they were like, we just got to finish Superman 1. So they stopped filming it, and the producers and Richard Donner like would really butt heads. And so when Superman was a huge hit, they fired Richard Donner and they hired another director to come on and finish Superman 2, even though Richard Donner had done the majority of the filming. Anyway, it's a big like Hollywood,
Yeah,
snafu
yeah,
and
yeah.
all that. But so they were planning these two movies, which is why we get this huge long scene with Zod, which is kind of fascinating in its own way.
Yeah. And he votes to send them off to the Phantom Zone, which in this universe is a big pane of glass that's a mirror that I guess just lands on you and then you're stuck in the mirror forever. And I
Yeah.
don't know. I think even when I was a little kid, I was always just kind of like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I don't know that this ever really like did anything. Like it's interesting to see the art department on this
Yeah.
film work within their limitations. Because
Yeah.
what I do like, I love these like two little rings that are spinning around
Yeah. Yeah.
Zod and his. I like the set here that when I love this shot of the dome opening up as the Phantom Zone
Yeah.
mirror comes
Yeah.
down to land on them. I like the miniatures on Krypton. I like the, like when
Yeah.
we're zooming into the. I'm like, oh yeah, that's fun. That you like,
Mhm.
I like that
It
stuff.
it gives you a very grand scale.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And the voice that Marlon Brando's doing is fun. I don't, this like weird British accent that he's doing.
Yeah.
Um,
It
I don't
is.
know why no one corrected him and why he just says Krypton.
Yeah,
Krypton,
Krypton. Yeah, it's
Krypton.
like, it's
Uh,
Krypton,
yeah,
you know?
it's so there's several things in this movie where I was like, were these guys just such big stars that no one wanted to correct them?
Most
Like,
most likely,
because it's like,
yeah.
yeah, Marlon Brando says like Krypton, and at one point, Gene Hackman says Saint Andreas instead of San Andreas. He goes,
Oh, yeah.
Saint Andreas, the Saint Andreas fault, and it's like
Yeah.
that's San Andreas, and like
Yeah,
but like
yeah.
but it's just like this is something we didn't talk about uh, yet is this movie opens with a very long title sequence.
Yes, which
And also
looks
we didn't even
pretty
talk about this.
awesome.
Oh, the title sequence is awesome. We also didn't talk about, I forgot about this, like, opening, this, like, the curtains that we're in a theater, and there's
Yeah,
these curtains, and the curtains open, and there's, like, a little kid reading from what looks like an action comic book
yeah,
about the city of Metropolis, and then the words on the screen, like, come to life, and the movie takes over. And I think
yeah.
the idea there was that, like, the comics coming to life, but I forgot that that was even in the movie.
I was like, "Am I watching the right movie?" Like, it took me aback because I have no memory of that at all. And even when you said that now, I had forgotten that that's how the movie started. It's such a
Yeah, me
weird way to
yeah.
start the movie.
I thought that I was like, "Did I click on the wrong movie?" Because
Yeah,
even the thing that the kid's reading, that it seems like it's like the stuff that's being read doesn't seem to have anything to do with the substance of the film we're about to watch. It's just
yeah,
sort of like about the Great Depression and about, like, the city of
yeah,
Metropolis that was also hit by the depression, and I was
yeah,
like, "Okay, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's
I
about the
yeah,
Daily Planet. It kinda just sets up the Daily Planet, which is, like,
yeah."
also a little strange, but it made me think, like, "Okay, is this Clark when he's a young kid, and is that why he wants to work at the Daily Planet?" I don't know.
Right,
It was kinda weird.
I didn't get it. It
Yeah,
seemed like what Richard Donner wanted to do was, like, this little kid's reading a comic about Superman and the Daily Planet, but it didn't seem like the comic Superman existed. It just seemed like it was a
yeah,
comic about the Daily Planet, and then the comic comes to life, and we go into this very long title sequence. Movies used to have big epic movies used to have really long title
yeah.
sequences, and I will admit, I'm sitting here watching it at home going like, "Ah, this score is awesome. John
Yeah,
Williams
oh,
is
yeah,
awesome,
yeah,
and these titles are awesome." But it is funny, it's a totally different era where the opening titles say Marlon Brando, Gene Hackman in a Richard Donner film, Superman, and then it says Christopher Reeve, and it's like, yeah, it's like, Mar like, no,
it's
that's
well, it's kind of funny because as we were talking about Batman, Jack Nicholson
yeah,
is the top build. He's
yeah,
over, Michael Keaton, which is like, all right, you got to get okay. This is kind of a this is something else that I want to talk about this movie in
yeah,
general. The thing that I love about this movie is which has kind of stayed now the entire time. So Christopher Nolan references Richard Donner's Superman a lot when he was making Batman Begins. He
mhm,
talks about how influential it was on him. And one of the things that he talked about that gave the movie legitimacy was that they cast big stars in key roles and they cast very good serious actors to play these roles, right? So they got Marlon Brando and they got Gene Hackman and then they had these other actors that were really good that really took the
Terrence
roles
Stamp,
seriously. Yeah, Terrence Stamp
mhm,
and when I watched the documentary today, and Richard Donner was talking. He had a phrase that he would tell everybody, which was verisimilitude. He wanted the movie to have verisimilitude, which is like honesty, and he wanted it. I mean, it's a lot more than that, but he wanted the movie to be honest with itself. Like he wanted everybody to take it seriously and to bring things that were true and honest and like make it like a real movie, right? He didn't treat it like it was a comic book movie. I mean, it is treated like a comic book movie, but he also has a lot of sincerity in it, and there's a lot
mhm.
of like heart. And I think that watching this movie, I'm like, yeah, this movie feels like it's taking itself very seriously in a way that's not like overly serious. I mean, it's like a comedy. It doesn't take itself seriously, but it takes the movie seriously, if that makes any sense.
It's trying to ground itself in a world that feels familiar and honest and realistic,
Yes.
and especially
Yes.
for 1978, it's like a lot of the stuff that now feels a little dated or a little corny didn't feel as corny or as dated then.
Yeah.
It
Oh,
felt
yeah,
like it
totally.
was yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So I love that about this movie. Like you could tell that Richard Donner, he was doing something pretty revolutionary where he was making it an epic movie as much as it was a comic book movie. Like
yeah.
he's trying to really wow people. He's trying to make it cinematic, not just cartoony. Like he wanted it to feel like a real person was flying, which the flying, I mean, flying parts are actually pretty good considering.
Yeah,
Yeah,
considering.
like I mean, now it's
Yeah.
it's not even comparable. But to think that they had nothing and everybody was blown
Right.
away by these visual effects, which was
Yeah.
pretty awesome, and they hold up
Yeah.
well in the sense that like they don't look too corny, and like it's pretty amazing the wire work that they did do in certain scenes.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, little
Yeah,
tangent there.
and we can get to some of these shots and some of these scenes.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so you know the story. Krypton, it's gonna die, and after they banish Zod to the Phantom Zone, we see Jor-El with his wife, and they're I can never remember her name. What
yeah.
Superman's
What is
mom's
it?
name is. But they have a baby, and they're gonna send their baby off to Earth, and I will say this conversation that they have, the dialogue here is very, very similar to the dialogue that Russell Crowe has with his wife in
Yes,
Man of Steel.
absolutely. Yep.
Um, and but this choice from Richard Donner to have the parents of Superman, the Kryptonian parents, be kind of pure-hearted people who wanted him to go to Earth and help people was never part of the original uh lore of the character. This was sort of
Mm.
a Richard Donner thing, and like like when he talks about like from the father comes the son, and the
Yeah, yeah.
son to the father, that whole thing. Like he references the Bible, which is we like there's a lot of things where like Jor-El sends him in this capsule and he's referencing all of this like earth stuff. He's talking about like Einstein's theory of relativity, and
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah, that
what
was
do you
strange.
how do you know who Einstein is? Like, how do you,
Yeah,
it's like, what are you
yeah.
talking about?
Well, he
And like,
does say he took knowledge from all the galaxies or whatever, but yeah, it
right,
is
yeah.
strange.
But yeah, it's like but this whole like biblical thing of like Superman being like a Christ allegory and stuff like this
Yeah,
kind of
oh yeah.
starts in the Donner continuity, and it wasn't in the original. I mean, Superman was it was created by Jewish authors, and it
Yes,
was more of a Moses story than a Christ story. A story of
true.
like I have to get, it was more of like a putting my baby in the basket, and and then my baby comes back to the city
Yes.
to save the city.
Yep.
And like anyway, that's why I like the change that James Gunn made in his Superman film, where and again we talked on our episode about like who knows, is that his parents, is that what the actual message is? But I actually like that if the message is that they were like, no, you should lord over Earth, you're going to be superior there. That
Yeah.
actually feels more in line with what Krypton kind of is, and the problem of Krypton and of Kryptonians is that they had sort of a superiority complex, and they were undone by their own hubris. And
Mhm.
I think it gives the character of Superman more agency if he decides to kind of be who he is and be Superman, rather than he is Superman because that's sort of like what his Kryptonian DNA dictates he should be. And this movie very much so leans into the idea that like he's Superman because that's what his Kryptonian destiny is. So that like he needs to
Yeah,
follow this like
yeah,
crystal that his dad gave him, and then his dad's like, and now you are Superman. And then, and it's like I think it robs the character of him being able to make the choice for himself, that like
yeah,
whatever he thinks about his his birth parents, whatever he believes about it, it's his it's Ma and Pa Kent who have instilled in him this love for humanity and this belief in the essential goodness of people, and he's making the choice to be a hero. He's not, like
yeah,
following some programming that was given to him.
yeah. I think honestly, after we had that conversation with the new Superman, I really do like this thought of him choosing to be nice when he could rule over everybody. That's what makes him interesting. I don't think it was necessarily a bad choice what they did, what Richard Donner did for this movie. Man of Steel does it as well. I think they do it a little bit better because Jor-El is a little bit more like, listen, they're pretty weak minded, but you can help them to be better, right? But it also kind of with him choosing to be you know, choosing his humanity over his Kryptonian past makes him a much more interesting. It makes him so much more active in his own superpowers and his superhero, his own story. It's his choice to be a good person, just like you're talking
I,
about.
I think so. I
Yeah.
think that's what's interesting about the character, and going back to his strength too, that people always say, "Oh, the strength is so boring," you know? And also, like, I've seen so many people on the internet going, "How come James Gunn's Superman's such a wuss? He's getting beat up the whole movie." And it's like, which is it? Do you hate Superman because he's too strong, or does the movie suck because he's not strong enough? But it's like the another thing that makes the character interesting is his ability to choose to not use his full strength. This movie,
Yes.
this Richard Donner movie, explores this a little bit. I think James Gunn's movie is actually exploring it a lot, that this is a character who is never operating at full capacity because he's afraid. Like, if I were to ever hit somebody as hard as I can hit, I'd almost certainly kill them. And so
Yeah.
I just don't do that. And
Yeah.
so it's like that's an interesting character, someone who's like, I'm never actually, like even the reason why it's like, oh, maybe the reason why he lost to Ultraman is because he didn't quite know who he was fighting yet.
Yeah.
And he's just like not really hitting the guy as hard as he can because he doesn't know who the guy is. And once
Mhm.
he understands who he's fighting, he's like, oh, cool, I can hit you as hard as I want now.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like
Yeah. I
and
think that's a great
yeah,
I love that. I love that. Yeah.
yeah, and but anyway, we're talking about the wrong movie now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna try
yeah.
as much as I can to not get to not compare this movie the entire time we're
Right,
talking about it
right,
to other Superman movies, but it's
right.
hard not to because
It's true.
it's the
It's true.
template for the Superman cinematic
Yeah,
world, and in so many ways, even more
yeah.
so than the George Reeves
Oh,
movies,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, or TV show. Uh, Anyway, so Krypton is destroyed. This is a sequence that goes on for a little too long.
Oh, yeah, way
Like
too long.
this
Yeah.
destruction sequence, I just was like, okay. I was like, we just spend forever just watching extras just like do backflips with wires, and like people go,
Yeah.
ah, and it goes on for like, it literally is like 3 minutes long of just like
Yeah,
watching people be like, oh, and I'm
yeah,
just like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, we got it. Like the planet
yeah.
is like, I
It's
know.
dying.
We got a whole long movie to do. Let's do it. And again, like Man of Steel, I think it's like she's looking out the window and the lava comes in the window and
Mhm.
that's it. And the planet
Yep.
blows up and that's it. Anyway, Superman is as a baby in this little thing on his way to Earth. I didn't remember this. I didn't remember that we get these little bits of voiceover of Jor-El like basically like book on tape, talking to his
Yeah.
son on his journey to Earth, being like, "So here's everything you need to know." While
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
to an infant.
Yeah, well, and this was yeah, like, I
Yeah,
didn't remember this at all either, and it goes on way
yeah,
longer than I thought it did, and it was too
yeah.
long. But
It was too
the
long.
thing that I found really interesting was, like, he says, like, "It will be 12,000 Earth years, since I have died." And I was like, "What?" And the whole time thing, because he goes later on, he goes to the Fortress of Solitude, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to teach you." And he's like, "It will be 12 years that have passed for you." And I was like, "What? Again?
Right.
Like,
It's like, "Wait,
what is
Dad, you're
going on?"
flying me into space to teach me to how to be Superman, and 12 years are gonna pass? And we're just gonna be, like, floating through space for 12 years, and then I'm gonna come
Yeah,
back and be Christopher Reeve? Like,
yeah,
what?" Like, I just but,
very
yeah, the
strange.
time thing is weird, and then later in the film, Gene Hackman's like, "Well, it says here that his dad died in 1938,
Yeah, it was
on
like around
Krypton."
1938. I was like, "What?
And it's
What happened to
like,
the 12,000 years?"
Marlon Brando says 2 different times
Yeah,
that he died thousands of years ago. And so I'm just like, what? Like, I just was like, why put that in the screenplay if that's
yeah,
not, and I don't know, because it's also weird that he tells his son like 12,000 years, well, I'll be dead for 12,000 years by the time you arrive at Earth. But
yeah,
like, it takes his son what seems like 3 or 4 years to travel to Earth. And by the time he gets there, he's like a 3 or 4 year old toddler.
yeah.
And, but it, like, see, presumably Jor-El would know that. He would know that, like, presumably Jor-El wouldn't think that it would take him 12 if Jor-El knows that the baby is aging inside of this
Mhm.
vessel that he's placed him inside of, wouldn't he know that, like, the baby can't live for 12,000 years? I just I don't know. I
I don't
didn't
know if
get
it's
that.
just the light speed, the time relativity of it all, which is probably why he talks about Einstein. Because if you're traveling light speed, time goes on, right? You don't age the same. So that's, but even still, like, it was a weird way to 12,000 years, 1938. Which one is it? It was a very
Well,
strange
it's a
thing.
major plot point that Lex is able to get kryptonite from
Yeah.
a meteorite that falls
Yeah.
to Earth shortly after the destruction of Krypton in 1938. And it's
Mhm.
like, so then it wasn't 12, it just isn't 12,000 years. Like it just,
Yeah.
I just don't know why that's in the screenplay. It's just sort of like unnecessarily confusing.
Yeah, it
But
is.
whatever. And
Yeah.
anyway, Superman crash lands on Earth, and we, Ma and Pa Kent, John and Martha Kent are driving
Mhm.
down the street, and this baby crash lands, and they get out of the car and they've got a flat tire. And I there's certain moments where I'm like, I remember this as a kid. Like I
Yeah,
remember
yeah, yeah.
the but you know what I
The
don't remember?
hmm.
I don't remember that little kid's penis. I
Oh, yeah.
don't.
I did not remember that. I was like, "Oh,
I
wow, they're really going for it." Man of
I that was what
Steel,
there's not
Man
a
of
little
Steel,
kid dick in Man of Steel.
there is the baby.
Oh yeah.
The baby, it shows him
Don't
as well, but
I'm
he's
gonna
a
say this right now.
baby.
Don't put these images on the screen when you edit
I
the
will
video.
not. I
Don't
will
put the
not.
little kid
I was
genitalia
like,
on
yeah, I
the
was like, "Wow, okay, there it
No,
is."
that was the first part that I called my girlfriend into the room. I was like, "Well, hold on, come here." I was like, "They're, like, really showing this little kid's
Yeah.
penis in this
Yeah, that was
movie."
super I was totally taken aback with that. But,
And then he does, like,
whatever.
a little pose where he, like, gets down, like, on his hands and knees, and he's like and I was like, "What are we doing here?"
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it was wi again, don't show these pictures. Don't show
No, I will
pictures of
not.
this.
Yeah, no.
But but yeah, I mean, yeah, they go, she picks
Yeah,
the little
he's
kid up. Yeah.
yeah, he's changing the tire and, he falls him and Martha's like, "Oh, we could keep him," which I was like, "Wow, you're just really wanting to abduct a baby, like, you don't know if this baby has." Anyway, so Jonathan falls over and Ma tries to save him, and then Clark is holding up the truck, and they're like, "Oh," and then we skip
And he's
to
like, he's wrapped in his cape, that I
yeah,
guess that's the other weird thing is like the way that like the origin of the clothes that when he's a
yeah,
baby, they've got him wrapped in like these Superman colored blankets. And,
mhm.
we didn't even talk about the Kryptonian clothes, which I like. I like the white
I did.
reflective
I
future
liked
clothes.
yeah,
Yeah.
I liked it as well. It was a cool effect.
It's a cool effect, but, yeah, it's not clear, like, are these clothes where is that what he's wrapped in at the beginning? But it's a different I don't know, whatever, and then
Yeah.
it's like, I guess this is his cape that he's in, but also I felt like his parents' reaction to him lifting this truck up, they, like, looked at this baby and they were like, "Hmm, wow." I just was like, I don't know, if a 4-year-old lifts a truck up like this, I think the react I don't know, they were
Yeah,
like, "Hmm, well, I guess he's
yeah.
our kid now."
Well,
And,
no human would have this type of baby.
yeah, we flash forward to Clark Kent as a teenager, and
Yeah.
I I I've thought this since I was a kid watching this movie. I've always been like, "Who is this actor playing the teenager? Does he have a fake nose on?" Like, it looks like they've put, like, a ton of makeup on his nose. I'm like, "Is the makeup on his nose to make him look more like Christopher Reeve?" I don't it doesn't seem to work, whatever it is. I never understood it. I also never understood why they cast an actor who looks like he's 35. Because I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know, this kid who's playing the teenage Clark looks like he's maybe 2 years younger than Christopher Reeve. Like, I
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
It's a weird thing because and then Christopher Reeve dubbed over his lines. So, like, he didn't it's not even that guy speaking. And it is it looks like he's wearing a wig too. It's a weird thing. I don't know why they decided to do that, but, whatever.
It's that this whole sequence has always felt weird to me every time I watch it. Like
Yeah.
there's something weird about his face. There's something weird about his nose. And every time I watch it, I'm like, what is going on
I
with
think
this
actually
actor?
I read
Yeah.
on here right before we started filming that they did add a lot of prosthetics to make him look more like Christopher Reeve. So
And to me, it doesn't work. Like, to me, it's
no.
like,
No.
you couldn't find an actor who just looked a little bit more like Christopher Reeve,
Yeah.
and B, if we're gonna cast somebody to be like young teenage Clark, cast a 14 or 15-year-old boy. Like, cast like but also maybe it's one of those things where it's like people back then looked older, because
Yeah.
all the kids that he goes to high, like that girl that's like, "Hey, Clark, we're going to a party." I was like, "She
Yeah.
looks 42." Like, I was
She
like,
does. It could be that. I think honestly, I
yeah,
wonder also with with the kid, he had to do a lot of wire work. So they probably needed a person with a bigger frame to kind of like for safety reasons to like because he's running, right? Like after this,
right.
he's like the kid's like, "Oh, you gotta clean up. I just knocked over all the football equipment." And Clark's like, "Oh," which I thought so he can't go to the party. But I also thought you're Superman. It'll take you 2 seconds to just put it back with your speed. So, but whatever. He's running down and he's running past the train, and you can tell he's on a wire because he's like the way that he
The effect,
runs.
it's so Looney Tunes.
It's very Looney Tunes. I've got to say that doesn't look great. Pretty cool that they did it practically. Applaud them for doing it that way. And like they really had a guy on a wire and he's pretending to move like he's running and they're speeding down. I think they undercranked to make it, they sped up the
Right.
footage to, but it looks goofy. He's like leaning backward and trying to like the way that he runs. Anyway, kind of a weird. What did you think about
I
that one?
I don't like it, and again, it's like I have to be, like, forgiving of the time,
Yes.
and I know that there are limitations, but it's just kinda one of those things where, like, if I got that in the can and I looked at it, I'd be like, "Oh, we can't use that." But again, I don't know, like, at the time, I think they were probably like, "That looks awesome," and
Yeah.
apparently, that was the response from most people is they were
Yeah.
like, "That's awesome," and
Yeah.
so I'm like, like, it's groundbreaking technology to, like, have that kinda wire work that's going down a field,
Hmm.
but man, in modern context, it just
Yeah.
looks so again, it's like I talk about, like, people are so hard on effects in movies these days. If
Oh
anything in
yeah.
the CGI looks at all like you can tell that it's CGI, people are like, "The effects were terrible." But I'm just
Yeah.
like, "Go watch a movie from before computer effect animation was a thing."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I just, it's like and sometimes it's really great, like John Carpenter's The Thing or something. You have the
Yeah. Yeah.
practical effects that are sometimes really, really cool. But sometimes it's just so whack, and like
Yeah.
I don't know, like comparatively, I'm just like I would. They shot David Corenswet's flying scene at the beginning of James Gunn's Superman practically. He's on a volume stage, and they've got him
Oh,
on a
okay.
gimbal, like doing like barrel rolls and stuff. And I'm like, and
Mhm.
you can feel that. It's like they shot that practically, and it looks awesome. Like, they
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
shoot him flying because he can't fly, but they had him on a rig and they had him on a volume stage where they shot, um, plates,
Yeah,
with
yeah,
drones of, like, mountainsides and stuff, and I'm like,
yeah,
"Yeah!" Like, I don't know.
yeah,
But anyway, so, yeah, Clark showing off, and then Pa Kent catches him showing off and kinda pulls him aside to have a chat, like,
yeah,
"Hey, man, you gotta take it easy." And I do like this conversation that they have,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
I like what Jonathan says. He basically says like, I know that you were sent here for a reason, but that reason's not to play football or to score touchdowns or whatever,
Yeah.
And he's like, you're here for a much greater reason, whatever it is.
And I like what Clark says too, where he's like, "Is it showing off if you're just doing something you can do? Like, is a
Yeah,
bird showing off when it flies?"
yeah,
And, it's like, if I'm able to score touchdowns more than anyone else in school, why would I not do that? Like, what's so wrong with that? And
yeah,
I liked how that Podkent's answer is like, it's not that it's showing off, it's that you're so powerful that your powers
mhm,
should be used for something more important than
yeah. This
being the best
actually,
at
this
yeah.
Yeah, this little section is very, very much like The Incredibles with
Mhm.
Dash wanting to run, and Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl fighting over why he should or shouldn't be able to do it. It's really kind of this little scene is kind of that context, which
Well,
I think is kind of interesting.
and this version of Pa Kent is more similar to the Kevin Costner version, where it's more,
Yeah, yeah,
from Man of Steel, where it's more like, it's not that I'm telling you to hide yourself. It's not that I'm telling you, to not ever use your powers. It's that, like, hopefully when you do, you're mature enough and old enough to understand how to use them responsibly and how to
yeah,
like, but like there's a bigger reason why you're here than just to like hook up with chicks because look how fast and strong I am, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And his dad's trying to teach, that's the lesson his dad's trying to teach him here. Uh, we really move quickly through like that. That's it for that's a wrap on Pa Kent. Like,
Yeah, he
and
dies.
Superman kills his dad. He's like, "Dad, race me." And Superman, you know that
He
your
kills his
dad can't
dad.
race you. You know we can't keep
Your
up with
dad
you.
is
And then
old.
he's old, and also you are faster than a speeding bullet. And and then his dad tries to like race him, and his dad has a heart attack and dies.
Yeah, he's
And
gone. And then
I
this
think it's
next
weird too that the movie never referenced that he's never like, I feel responsible for my dad's death. It's crazy that like they would put in the screenplay him being like, race me, dad, and then like
yeah.
running up there and being like, oh shoot, my dad just had a heart attack. And that it's never referenced in the film that he's like, I probably shouldn't have done that. Like, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
this next sequence, honestly, is another one that just takes way too long. I was like, this could have been handled in a 30-second montage,
Yep.
which basically he feels really bad. He tells his mom he needs to go. She's like, "Oh, I've been waiting for this day." And then he goes to Antarctica or the North Pole or somewhere.
He
I
goes
don't know.
north. Yeah. North Pole.
Yeah. And then he somehow, oh no, he found something. He finds something. He finds the green
Yeah,
crystal in his
this
barn.
movie has so many like little like MacGuffins and pieces of technology
Yeah.
that you just have to sort of go like, okay, like in fact, this movie has a lot in common with the movie Brightburn, which was produced by
Yeah.
James
James
Gunn.
Gunn.
Uh in that film, the kid who's like evil Superman, it's sort of Brightburn
Mhm.
is a movie
Yeah,
about
yeah.
like what would happen if Superman was evil, but he's like sort of called to the barn where they're
Yeah.
keeping his
Yeah.
spaceship. And the
Yep.
spaceship sort of he feels this like pull towards the spaceship that he arrived to Earth in, and that spaceship winds up making him evil. It's sort of like
Yeah.
a it's like you know, but
Mm.
in this movie the same thing happens where Clark like wakes up in the middle of the night and he's like called to the barn,
Yeah.
and he
Yeah.
goes to the barn and finds the green shard. And I was confused by this because when I see a green shard, my mind goes, is that kryptonite?
Kryptonite.
And
Yep. Kryptonite.
but then like that's apparently not. I guess there's
Yeah.
because Jor-El was handling it at the beginning of the film, and I guess this
Yeah.
green shard is like the special shard that will make their home sort of
Yeah.
reemerge. And but somehow he just knows that he needs to go to like where it's icy in order to
Yeah.
make this work. And I don't know, like the movie sort of what it seems to be implying is that Superman either through listening to the words of his father when he was traveling to Earth in the spaceship, or
Mhm.
just something in him, he
Yeah,
sees
telling
this
him
thing that
that.
he knows, if I take this north and throw it into then it'll build the the Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's a lot that you just have to sort of like accept, and that
Yeah.
the and again, like the movie's not really telling you all of this, but it's also taking a long time with all of this. And
Yeah.
you just have to kind of go like, okay, because then he just sort of he goes to the North Pole. And I kind of like these sets. I like these practical
Yeah.
sets of him
Yeah, they
like
look good.
jumping around on these glaciers
Yeah.
and stuff. Where
It
he
kinda
takes out
reminded
the
me of
green.
Elf, but, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Did you see the little animatronic polar bear that was like swimming around
Oh,
in
no,
one of
I
the
didn't.
yeah,
I'll have to go back and look at that.
there was like a little polar bear that was swimming around in like one of the ponds. I was like,
Oh,
"Ah,
that's
that's funny."
funny.
Yeah. Um, and yeah, he takes out the green shard and he just knows somehow to throw it into the distance, and it lands in the snow. And I liked this kind of practical effect of it like hitting the ground and then like melting into the
Yeah,
floor. I was
the
like,
water.
whoever they did that, that's kind of fun. Like
Yeah.
whatever the art team rigged up to make it look like it's melting
Yeah.
looked
Yeah.
cool.
It's cool stuff, yeah, and he gets the Fortress of Solitude just kind of, like, comes up out of the ground and has everything. It has his dad's messages in there, whatever, and this is the part where he's like, "Okay, I'm your father, you don't know me," and then he's like, "I'm gonna teach you all these things, and it will have been 12 years, Earth years," and that was like, "Whoa, what?" Like, but
I don't remember. I forgot this, that like he literally just goes, "Come with me, my son,
yeah,
into like the," he's like into like the cosmic ether, and like
yeah,
him and his Superman just kind of go into space, and then he's like, "In 12, I'll teach you everything for 12 years, and then we'll
yeah,
come back." And at this point, we're told Superman is 18, so I guess now he's coming back as a 30-year-old man,
yeah,
and he just is Superman now because he
yeah,
talked to Jor-El. And I personally don't really like that. I don't like
mm,
that it's just like, "Oh, I talked to my dad from Krypton, and because of that, I'm Superman now."
yeah,
I
yeah,
feel like what makes him Superman is that like, I think Clark Kent decides to be Superman. I don't think it's just
Right.
this thing that his space dad's like, "Let me take you into space and you will be Superman for that."
Yeah.
It's like,
Spa Space Dad, that's like Megamind. That's exactly
yeah.
what they call him. Anyway, yeah, it is, I think honestly their superhero movies were not big at this time, and they were kind of trying to do it all. This is basically like the end of his origin, and then they go into like him, announcing himself as Superman. So it's kind of like it doesn't really work that well because I see this movie as it could be all about him deciding to be Superman. Like, he gets to the Fortress of Solitude, or the yeah, Fortress of Solitude or whatever. And then the rest of the movie would be him figuring everything out. Right. That would be like an origin story. But this movie, they just kind of cut through all of that and they're like, all right, now he's Superman. Like, here we go. And it's
And I
kind of
just
like,
I don't think that's very good writing or storytelling to just be
right,
like, well,
right.
he gets the Fortress of Solitude and then his dad takes him into space for 12 years and now he's Superman. I'm just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
okay. And like, like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And why? And but it just is like, I, it's just a weirdly structured and weirdly paced film.
Yes.
And again, even when we go into space for 12 years with dad, we're there for too long. Like we're
Yeah.
just like floating through the cosmos for what feels like 12 years. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, like you could just say 12 years later, like he could just be like,
Hmm.
let me take you into space and teach you everything you need to know. And then it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. But also, I will say this. I think a good rule of thumb, if you're going to do a movie that's like spanning a character's life, is once they're like 18 or older, the actor that plays them as an adult should play that version of them. Like
Yeah.
that's I already brought this up. Like I think like, in Man of Steel, it's like it shows him as like a 13 or 14-year-old kid. And they have like a 13-year-old actor who
Yeah.
looks much younger than Henry Cavill play that version of him. And then when Henry Cavill and that
Yeah.
version, but
Mhm.
that version is like in college, it's Henry Cavill. And
Yeah,
then when
yeah.
he's 30, it's Henry Cavill. Or like, you know, um, Christian Bale is Bruce Wayne. When he's like 18 or 19, it's Christian Bale. And they just sort of
Yeah,
comb
yeah.
his hair differently. And and I'm like, I think that's a
Yeah.
better rule of thumb to help me buy into this.
Yeah.
It's weird that between 18 and 30, his face changed that much. Like it's,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
It was those
yeah,
12 years in space. But,
yeah,
yeah, that was a choice they made, but he's Superman, and then he really flies. He flies out, just
yeah.
interesting wire work, and then at this point, I think don't we go to Metropolis, and I think they start following,
Clark
Otis?
Kent.
Oh, is this when we
Oh,
get
well,
Clark Kent?
first we do Clark Kent.
First we
So we
get
show
Clark
up,
Kent. You're right,
the
yep.
first thing we see, and I do like this shot of, so a taxi driver drops off a guy at the Daily Planet who we don't see, and then we go to this shot that's all through the camera lens of Jimmy Olsen, and he's looking
Yeah,
around the Daily Planet, and he's
that's
introducing us
right.
to the different characters in the bullpen, and we're seeing Perry White, and we're seeing Lois Lane, and all and I like this, and then he eventually goes to the door, and Clark Kent walks in. Or no, Lois Lane gets up and goes into Perry White's office, and Perry White is talking to Clark Kent. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
that's kind of a fun way to, but again, like this, like we're in this Jimmy Olsen camera shot for like 2 minutes.
Yeah, while.
It's like,
Yeah,
it's a while. But
yeah.
yeah, Lois is introduced to Clark Kent, and this is another narrative and like writing weird thing. It's like, it's almost like Clark Kent stands up and knows that he's supposed to, that like in the comic books, Lois and Clark Kent are supposed to be an item. Like he's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, let me introduce you to Clark Kent." Immediately, Clark's just like, "Oh, hello, Lois. I would love to take you to dinner." And it's like, what? Like
Yeah.
you get like, what is this? Like you just met this woman. Can we have some time for you to like develop feelings for her, or is it just
Right.
immediately he's like, "Oh, yes." It seems like Clark has a secret, and the secret is that he knows that he and Lois are a thing in the comic books, and he
Yeah,
doesn't. It's
yeah.
weird. It's like
It is weird.
I just, and I also like, people love Christopher Reeve's Clark
Clark.
Kent. They love
Yeah.
just the nerdiness and the pushing up the glasses and the, to me, it's okay. It's a bit much. Like it's,
Right, right.
how do you feel about it?
I kinda like it. I like his I like how goofy he is, and it is very much an act. This is kind of like you talked about last week with three versions of Clark. You know, there's Superman, there's Clark Kent, and then there's when he's his actual self. This Clark Kent is so much more of an act. There's like no real Superman in it, you know. So like I mean, at times I was like, all right, this is a bit much. But he there's something endearing about Christopher Reeve, you know, in that, and kind of like he's overcompensating so that no one ever suspects he's Superman.
Right. But when it starts to work for me is there are even moments when he is Superman where the nerdiness comes out, where it's like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
okay, so some of the nerdiness is genuine. Like Clark is like,
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like there in this opening scene of him getting to know Lois, she asks him like, "So how you liking Metropolis? How you liking the city?" And he's talking, or how do you like the new job? And he's saying different things. He goes, but mostly I think it's pretty swell.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Well, Clark, you know, most people these days, it's been a long time since anyone felt comfortable saying the word swell." And he
Right.
goes, "Oh, I don't know, Lois, seems natural to me." And
Yeah.
even though this Clark Kent is an act that he's putting on, I think that is genuine. And
Yeah.
that's what sort of bumps for me is like,
Mm.
I don't think that Clark should have to put on such a heavy act. I think that
Mm.
he just like the guy that David Corenswet is in James Gunn Superman, when he's Superman, he just says stuff like "golly" and "what the
Mhm.
hey" and "oh my gosh" and stuff like that. Like that's just who Superman is. And even Christopher Reeve's Superman is kind of a nerd even when he's Superman. And so I don't like that the Clark Kent nerdiness is played as though it's like he's not actually a nerd. He's actually quite suave. It's like,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
he is a nerd. And I
Yeah.
don't think that I just I don't know. That's why it doesn't really work for me because I'm like, no, but the nerdiness is genuine.
Mhm.
And
It's
I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, it is, you know, it is a lot. But, the he's I did think it was kind of funny. He's trying to open the bottle, you know, and, like, he overplays he pretends to be much weaker than he actually is, and it kind of like works out, and which actually leads pretty well into the next well it leads into the next scene where he's him and Lois are walking on the street, and I thought he was being way too forward after just meeting Lois Lane. Like,
Yeah,
I'd love to
exactly.
take you out to dinner, and you know,
Yeah.
weird.
He's just the movie's just like immediately Clark's like, "Oh, that's my
Yeah,
love interest for the movie." Like
yeah, yeah.
immediately. He's like, "Oh,
Yep.
well, hello, Lois. I guess I'm gonna try to hook up with you in this movie." And it's like, it's
Yeah,
just like, well, hold on, like get to know each other first and then establish some chemistry and establish some
yeah,
like
yeah.
mutual interests and then ask her out. But the movie's just like, they're the love interests. And Lois doesn't like Clark because he's a nerd. But yeah, he's trying to ask her out and this guy holds them up. And this scene kind of bothers me too because I'm like, I feel like there's a better way he could have handled this situation. I feel like
Hmm.
he's trying so hard to be like, "Oh, I no, I just don't know." I'm just like,
Yeah,
why
yeah.
don't you just sort of like deal with it in a way that doesn't give you away, but
Hmm.
doesn't make Clark such a like I feel like there's a I don't know. It just feels like the scene is designed for Lois to wind up being like, "Clark sucks." Like, "Dude, that guy was
Yeah,
gonna shoot me and you
I know.
passed out," you know?
I know.
Like,
I couldn't remember this scene, and I thought I for some reason I thought what happened was Lois looks away, and then Clark like takes the gun and like bends it or something. Like I thought that's what had happened originally, and then it is. But what happens actually in the scene is he's like, "Oh, you better give him your purse, Lois," and he like so Lois kicks him in the groin, and then the gun goes off, and he catches the bullet and saving her. But he does come off looking like a bumbling idiot. And I'm like, why would Lois ever want to date this guy after that? Because he's like, oh, I fainted. Like, oh, I'm sorry. I was so scared. I'm like, why doesn't she just walk away from him and never talk to him again?
well, and I do like that Lois Lane saves herself. Like,
Oh, yeah. I
that's
like that. Yeah. I like that.
I like that. I like
Right.
that Lois Lane it's good character development for her,
Yes.
but I
Yes.
just there's gotta be a different way in my mind to write Clark in this moment.
Right, and
I
that's
just
what I
feel like
that's what I
yeah,
agree too, because the way that he is written, I don't feel like Lois would hang around with him or even go on a date with him.
yeah. And it's even weird the whole thing. Like they do this gag where he's like, Lois, just like $10 and some chewing gum and like
Yeah.
a torn up movie ticket and some rouge isn't worth losing your life over. And she's like,
Yeah.
that's exactly what's in my purse. And in my mind, like they play it as like a gag of like, oops, Superman just revealed that he can see through her purse. But if I'm Lois Lane, I'd be like, did you look in my purse?
That's what
I'd be like,
I thought
like
too.
when we were at work, did you open my purse? Like
Yeah.
I just would. There's no world in which it wouldn't be. She's just kind of like, he's like, lucky guess. I guess lucky guess.
Yeah, yeah,
And she's like, wow, weird, Clark. But I'm like, no. The first
yeah.
thought would be like, were you going through my purse, dude?
That's what
Like,
I thought too. Yeah.
yeah.
It's a
I don't
little
know. It's
creepy.
just it's a weird way to write. I just like, there's
Yeah.
got to be a reason why Lois Lane would be interested in Clark Kent, you know?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
just feel like the
Yeah.
way that they're writing Clark Kent, like it feels like this characterization of Clark is trying so hard to not be discovered as Superman that he's making Clark Kent out to be a totally unlikable, like
Yeah. Yeah.
such a loser, such
Yeah.
a and weird and creepy and way too forward and what
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and kind of like self-righteous and weirdly judgy and I
Yeah.
don't know.
He is.
It's
He's not the
just
best. Yeah.
whereas, like, I feel like Corin Sweat's performance, like, even though he's got the hypno glasses on and they sort of introduce that plot device, when he goes to work at the Daily Planet in the one scene we see of him there, he has a different way of like he puts on a little bit more of a nerdiness around his coworkers and his peers.
Mhm.
But
He
it's
does.
not like it's not so pathetic. It's not like
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
just sort of like a like kind of like an awkward, like shy guy, like and but he's not like like it's just a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
from
It is.
Christopher Reeve as this
It is.
character. And I don't know, maybe it played for in the '70s and people were just like, "Yeah, that's what a nerd's like." But because we had movies
I
like
think it
Revenge of
was.
the Nerd. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. But,
Yeah. I mean,
anyway,
yeah. After this scene, I believe, or around this time, we see uh we
Lex
see
Luthor's
Lex Luthor's
henchman.
henchman. Yeah, and he's like,
I hate this character so much. I hate this guy.
me
I
too.
hate everything he says and everything he does. Every moment that they try to make
Yeah.
funny with him is terrible. There's not a
Yeah.
single moment that he has that's like, "That was funny." It's all like, "Sorry, blah, 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 boss." Like, it's like, it is
Mr.
so
Luthor,
ridiculous.
Mr.
Mr.
Luthor.
Mr. Luthor. Like the
Yeah.
fact that Richard Donner in 1978 was like, we got to do verisimilitude and make it grounded, and everyone's like, this is the superhero movie that we need to be aspiring to, and it's just got this guy like, boss, I thought you said M. Sorry, boss. Like it's
Yeah, yeah,
just so crazy.
yeah,
It's so like Rocky and Bullwinkle, over the top, insane, crazy. And Gene
yeah,
Hackman's actually doing a pretty good job because he's Gene
yeah,
Hackman, but he's
yeah,
got this guy that he's acting with that I'm like, you gotta be kidding me that
yeah,
anyone
yeah.
at any point in history was like, I like that guy. Like that, it's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
crazy. But
Yeah, he's being chased by some police. They're trying to get to Lex. This was the part that I think you're talking about, which was pretty dark, which
yeah,
I appreciated.
yeah,
He takes so Otis is the bumbling idiot's name.
yeah,
He goes into this little notch in the subway. When a train passes by, a passage opens and he comes out. So the policeman's like, "Oh, that's where it is." He goes up and there's another train coming by, but Lex Luthor sees him and he pushes the button and it starts pushing him out, and it pushes him out right before the train and he gets run over by the train, which I was like, I thought this was a pretty brilliant way to establish Lex Luthor and the
yeah,
type of person that he is. And I was like, okay, they went there. Like that was really, it is pretty dark. I mean, he murders a guy.
yeah,
But it was an interesting way to do that because Lex Luthor's not a good guy. So
yeah.
I actually thought this was like, I was like, wow, it sets the tone for who Lex is. He never really lives up to it after that.
Yeah.
But I liked it. I like this scene.
We have a nice long big scene at Lex's. This is another problem this movie has, but it's similar to James Gunn's movie. Like, we can't ever get Lex out of his lair. Every time
Yeah.
we go to Lex, he's just in this same location, and it feels like they shot and wrapped Gene Hackman in like 4 days. It
Yeah,
feels like
yeah,
they were just like,
yeah,
Hackman will only do it for 4 days, so we got to write the entire character in this one location, and we're just going to shoot all of his scenes in like a few days and just get him
yeah,
out, you know.
yeah,
But you know, and the scenes are long, and again, like, it's been a while since Clark Kent grew up into Christopher Reeve, and we've got a whole long introduction to Christopher Reeve, and now we have this whole long introduction to Gene Hackman, and then we
yeah,
go back to the Daily Planet. We're still doing stuff with Clark Kent and Lois Lane, and we're
yeah,
still doing bits, and we're still and I'm going like, is Superman coming at any point in this movie? Is he going to show up?
yeah,
And I couldn't remember. I was like, what is the inciting incident that makes Superman finally make an appearance in
yeah.
this film? Yeah, and this, you know, the Lex Luthor scene is like he's got Mrs. whatever her name is, and he's got
It's Eve again. That's the
yeah,
character,
and
and
I
it's
did I did like
Tessmacher or
I
something.
liked that. I actually liked that. I As soon as I saw her, I thought, "Oh, that's so Eve. Like she's very
Mhm.
Eve." And her
Yeah,
name actually is Eve. And I
yeah,
liked that. So I was like, "Okay, that's cool that James Gunn did that. That he
mhm,
brought that character back and that he had her similar to this film wind up kind of double crossing Lex."
right,
I thought that was fun, and I actually
mhm,
but I again, I think the way that James Gunn uses her is smarter and
right,
better
right.
than the way this movie. She's just sort of
Yeah.
in this movie to be like, "Oh, Lex, what are you talking about?" And he's just like, "Shut up, Miss Tessmacher!"
That's
you know? She's just like,
yeah, that's
"Oh, Lex, you're gonna punch me in the mouth if I talk back to you, aren't you?" And
she
he's
did
like,
say that.
"Yeah." He's like, "Yes, I will. I'll punch
I'm
you
the
good."
I'm the best evil mastermind of the day. That's
Yeah,
which is the thing about Gene Hackman is awesome. He's
yeah,
just good in everything he's in, but he was so like so one dimensional.
yeah.
Like, oh, I'm the smartest man that there is. Aren't you glad to be in the room with me? And like,
It's just terribly unsubtle writing.
oh yeah,
We're
yeah,
introduced to the character, and right away he's like, "I'm the greatest supervillain in the world." And it's like,
yeah,
okay, all right.
yep. This
Most
guy's evil
villains,
because he's evil.
yeah, and he's proud of it. And like
Yeah,
most supervillains, I think the fun thing about Nicholas Holt's character is that, and the thing about Lex Luthor in the comics is that he thinks of himself as like the hero that people should be
yeah,
aspiring to, and
yeah,
not Superman.
yeah,
And this version of Lex is just like, I'm a bad guy doing bad things, and I'm
yeah,
proud of it. Yeah.
yep.
Um,
But the inciting incident that you're talking about is this
yeah.
helicopter scene, which um a great, again, this is a movie that I appreciated how far it tried to go with the technology that they had.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's a stupid thing that happens. It doesn't really make any sense, but the helicopter gets caught and it can't. Lois Lane is trying to go interview the president or something, or be there when Air Force One lands or whatever,
Yeah.
and this cord wraps around or hits the helicopter and it stalls and it's kind of sitting and it crashes and she's hanging over the edge. And I just thought, like, and the way that the scene is shot is actually the rudder on the helicopter comes and it breaks through the little booth that they have, and it looked really cool. And the helicopter is like teetering on the edge, and I thought this was a very cool sequence and a cool way to get Superman out, even though it happens so far into the movie.
It
But
happens so far into the movie, and also at this point, I obviously at this point go, "Oh, okay, here he comes." Like,
yeah, 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 yeah.
this is the inciting. Obviously, we're finally gonna get Superman here. Like,
Hmm.
if anything's gonna do it, it's Lois Lane being in a helicopter crash. But then, even then, like, I just found myself going, like, "Okay, come on!" Like,
Yeah, yeah,
it takes forever for like we've got to go through this whole crash sequence where she's hanging off the edge and she's hanging out the door, and I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. Like, is he gonna fly up there and get her? And then like Christopher Reeve walks out, sees her hat on the ground, picks it up, looks at it, looks up, and is like, "Oh no, Lois!" And then he's like,
yeah,
I guess I'll be Superman and go get her. And then he's like, goes to a phone booth, and it's not the right kind of phone booth. And that's sort
yeah,
of a reference to the comics, and he's, and it's sort of 1978 being like, we don't have those old fashioned phone booths in this metropolis.
yeah,
This is
yeah,
the updated 1970s movie. And so then he goes and does a rotating door. But it's just like, it's still like, oh my gosh, let's go. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
come on. She's hanging out, and it just feels like if the movie were made today, he would it would just the sequence of events would just unfold
Oh,
faster,
yeah. Oh,
you
yeah,
know?
much the
Yeah,
this whole movie would be closer to an hour and 45 minutes if it
right.
was made by today's standards. So, yeah, it's but
Yeah.
he does the spinning door thing, and he comes out as Superman, and
I
he
like the
goes
guy
up
that
and
sees him and is like, "Whoa!" Like he's like, "Hey,
yeah.
nice outfit, Jack." Like,
Yeah. And he's like, "Excuse me," and then he just flies away.
yeah,
And,
uh,
yeah, I mean, this is like the real we really get to see everything, and Lois falls, and he catches her, and he's like, "Don't worry, miss, I've got you." And she's like, "You got me? Who's got you?"
great
And then
line.
he catches the helicopter and puts it back down, and
It's pretty baller catching the helicopter with
oh,
one
yeah.
hand while you got Lois in the other, and
Yeah.
just, lifting it up and just setting it down. It's
Yep.
pretty, yeah, it's a pretty cool introduction.
Yeah.
I again, cool scene. Narratively, this whole sequence is very weird to me
Oh, totally.
because it seems to suggest that Clark has arrived in Metropolis and has been waiting for the
Yes.
moment that
Yes.
he's going to introduce himself as Superman.
Yep.
And then once he does it, he's like, I'm on the scene now. Now that everybody's seen me, and he's going around
Yeah.
town and he does a whole night of solving crimes. And it's
Yes.
weird because it's like, so you could have been doing this the whole time, but you were like waiting till the girl you have a crush on at work had something happen to her. So
Yeah.
that it's just it just is weird because the way that it's played in the movie is like he has not done anything as Superman
No.
until this night. This
It
is his first
actually
time stepping out,
it
and
it probably would have been better if this helicopter scene, excuse me, happened, as before Clark Kent gets to the Daily Planet.
I agree. I
So
agree.
if it was earlier, it would be better to have like, oh, he saves this girl and that's where he falls in love with her. That's why he falls in love with her is because like, oh, I saved her and I think she's beautiful and like, but
They have
and
a
then that would
they have a
make that back
witty
and forth.
Well, and they have a
Yeah,
witty banter that she's
yeah,
obviously flirting with him, and he
yep,
sets her down, and they have this night, and she's like, "Well, who are you?" And they have this nice chat, and
yeah,
that should be the scene that happens right after he's done being in space with Marlon Brando for 12 years. He
yes,
should show up in Metropolis as Superman, and like what we should immediately cut to is reporter Lois Lane getting in this helicopter to get, and
yep,
she's gonna
yep,
die, but Superman shows up and saves her.
yeah,
And now that Superman's in Metropolis, Clark Kent needs to get a job. And then we see, it's like the
hmm
fact that the movie tries to do this thing where it's almost like trying to trick us into being like, who's this Clark Kent fellow? I guess we'll
yeah,
find out. It's like,
yeah.
we've been watching the movie. Like, like,
We know who Clark Kent is.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's not like we're gonna like
yeah,
he's gonna come out of that door and we're gonna be like, oh, that's who Clark Kent is. Like,
yeah.
it's so I don't know, it's weird. And
It
then
is weird.
he spends but I like this how he just Lois goes, "Who are you?" And he says, "A friend." And I just
Yeah,
like how he says to people, "Bye."
yeah.
He says this to like several people. He's just like, "Bye." And
Yeah,
then
yeah, and he
and that's
goes,
how he just
well,
leaves like
and so, I mean, there's people robbing a bank, and he gets them, and he puts their boat in the middle of the city, which was kinda cool,
I like the
but
guy that's trying to climb the wall, and
yeah, yeah,
he's standing on we do a whole montage of Superman going around
yeah,
the city, helping people, showing,
yeah,
and it's fun. But then
yeah,
he saves a cat, which is James Gunn did this with the squirrel, and the scene is so good.
the scene is,
He
making
he saves he saves this little girl's cat, and she's like, "Thanks, mister." And he's like, "You're welcome, little girl." And then like, but again, to this little girl, he just goes, "Bye," and just
yeah,
flies,
yeah,
again, it's just like, "Bye," and he just flies away. But then this little girl goes inside her house, and you just hear this. You just hear her go, she goes, "Mom, a man with red boots flew, uh, saved Whiskers, and he was flying." And then as her mom goes, "What did I tell you about about lying?" And she smacks her. And what's so funny is, like, you don't see the smack happen, you just
No, you
hear
just
it.
hear it. Which this whole thing makes no sense because why did they put this in the movie?
Why is that in the movie? Superman saves this little girl's cat, and she goes in and tells her mom, "This man saved my cat," and her mom smacks her in the face.
Like
It's like Superman got that little girl smacked by her mom.
like, should he have not saved the cat? I mean, that's probably she just got beat up by her mom.
It's it's just so funny too. The mom's voice, like the mom just sounds like this like mean alcoholic. She's just like, "What did I tell you about lying?"
Oh,
Little
yeah.
girl's just like, "Ah!" Like,
Yeah,
but
it's like, it makes
it's
no
like
s is
you
it
could have
supposed
just
to be funny or is it not supposed to be funny? I don't get it.
you could have, and most likely should have, just ended the scene with him giving the little girl her cat back
Yep.
and her going, "Thanks, mister," and him going, "You're welcome. Goodbye," and flying
Yeah.
away, and her just being like, "Wow." The end. Like Superman's such a good guy. He's stopping bank robberies. He's doing all kinds of. He's catching women who are falling out of the sky and catching air
Yeah.
helicopters,
Yeah.
and he's also saving cats. But then they do this tag where the little girl goes inside and gets slapped by her mom.
What what are they trying to say? Like, seriously, what was the point of that scene? I don't get it.
I
That's what made it so funny.
I think it's just very 1978. I think
Yeah.
just in 1978, there was just a thing about, like, like, it's normal to hit your kids. It's, like and little kids get in trouble when like, I feel like there were lots of movies where, like, a little kid would see something extraordinary happen that we, the audience, get
Yeah,
to
yeah.
see,
Yeah.
and then they would report it to an adult, and they'd be like, "This just happened," and the adult would be like, "Don't tell lies," and, like, backhand them or something, and that
Yeah.
was just sort of like a normal thing, but it's so weird in a modern context to watch that scene and be like, "What just happened?" Like, that
Yeah.
little girl's, like, so happy and so inspired by Superman, she's like,
Yeah.
"Wow," and goes inside, and immediately it's undercut by this mom just being like, "You shut up!" Just like,
Smack. Like, whoa.
"Hey,
It's like,
don't pour
yeah.
me another scotch. You you go over there and you make your
Quit
mother
telling
a
lies and give
martini.
me a drink. Yeah. Yeah.
Mom, stop hitting me. You shut up. Give me that cat. I'm putting this cat back in the tree."
That would
Goes there,
really
I just
I like I it is such a weird so there's that. That is in the
Yeah,
movie.
it's also weird that, like, with his super hearing, he didn't hear this mom, like, hit her daughter right after he helped this little girl.
Yeah,
He didn't,
really.
like, turn around and go back and be like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 don't hit your daughter.
Yeah,
I She
please,
was
she was
telling the
telling the
truth.
truth. Yeah. Yeah, that
Watch,
would
I
have
can
been
fly."
yeah, yeah. The weirdest
Uh,
makes no sense.
anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, so
What
we g
even happens
so
after
that's
this?
yeah, well, then it's like, now the world knows that Superman's here, and there's all these headlines and all these different papers about, like, "This guy's flying around town,
Oh,
and what do we know about this guy?" And Perry White at the Daily Planet wants his reporters to
yeah.
get the inside scoop on Superman.
Yes.
And he's like,
So we
"Whoever
get
gets that inside scoop, it's gonna be the most important conversation or interview since God talked to Moses," you know?
yeah,
So,
yeah, which was a good I
yeah.
thought again, referring to Moses because he was really modeled after Moses at the beginning,
And I
so
like that line. I think that's a good line.
I did like that line. I thought it was
Yeah.
I actually thought like, "Oh, that's a really great line."
Yeah.
But Lois Lane, Clark, wrote a message to her like, "Meet me at 8 o'clock," and then
Also, the way that this is edited makes it doesn't there's no, like, spatial
no.
Lois is just in this meeting, and she just looks down and just has a note. She just
Yeah.
has a note in her hand, and it just says, "Meet me at 8 o'clock, a friend." And then "a
Yeah.
friend" is underlined, and she's like, "A friend, Superman." But it's
Yeah.
like, "How'd you get that note?" It's like,
Yeah.
you were just standing there in this meeting, and you looked down and just had a note. And it's like,
Yeah.
we don't see you get the note, we don't and then Clark's just looking at her over her shoulder like, "Well,
Yeah.
read the note." And
Ooh.
and she looks up at Clark and he's like, "Mm," and
Yeah.
it's just and it's just like it's so like but also it's like doesn't say where to meet. It doesn't say on your
Yeah.
balcony, like on your
Yeah.
let's meet in your garden
Yeah.
veranda. Like it's just sort of
Yeah.
like tonight at 8 o'clock, a friend.
Yeah.
And
And then
then
the scene
yeah,
when he does meet her
yeah.
is like, again, another extremely long scene, extremely long sequence. He meets with her and they have this very long conversation, which is very suggestive.
Oh
Uh
my goodness.
like
I could not, but when she said so first of all, like you've seen Margot Kidder in this
yeah,
iconic like
yeah,
nightgown that she puts on to
yes.
wait for Superman to show up in her backyard, which by the way, it's like nothing in the notes said that that's where you should meet, but
Yeah,
whatever. But
who
she's like
cares?
mad that he's late. She's like, well, 8 o'clock. He's late. But it's like
Yeah,
how do you know where whatever
yeah,
whatever movie, but then he shows up and that he agrees to let her interview him. He's like, well, I'm assuming you should get an interview.
yeah,
And she's like, yes, of course, let me interview you. And she's asking him about his dimension. She's like, how tall are you? He's 6'4". And then
yeah,
she asked, she goes, how big are you? I mean, how tall are you?
yeah.
And that's she said how when she said how big are you and he made a face, I was like, dude, what? I was like I was like, what did she just say?
Yeah.
And
Very
his
well, and then she's
yeah.
like later on in the conversation, she's like, "What, color underwear am I wearing?" And he's like, "Oh, is this made of lead?" "Well, I can't see through lead." And I was
He
like,
immediately tries to see. Like
"Yeah, yeah, he
she
does."
goes, what color underwear am I wearing?" And he looks down and then she's like having a hard time seeing and he's like, "Well, no, this must be made of lead, but I
Yeah.
can't see through lead." And then she moves further and he's like, "Oh, pink." But it's just
Yeah.
like
You
weird.
just like yeah.
Like
Very
I
strange.
it feels like Superman would be like, "Oh, I like, are you sure you want me looking at that?" Like I
Yeah,
like
yeah, he just immediately like, "Pink." And she's like, "Oh," and he's
and then
like, "Do
she's
you
like,
like pink?" And he's
"Hmm."
like, "Oh, I do like pink." And I was like,
This whole
"Awkward."
scene is even that line, her being like, "Do you like pink?" And him being like, "I do." I'm just like, "What are we doing here?" Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and also there's a part where she's like, "Well, to put it bluntly, do you" and then there's like this long pause where they're
Yeah.
looking at each other and she goes, "Eat?" And he goes, "I do when I'm hungry." And I'm like, this scene is like, I'm just like,
It's not
"Wha"
subtle.
it's like,
And it
"Whoa."
it also goes way too long, like,
It's way too
okay,
long.
we get it, and then he's like she's like, "How fast can you fly?" He's like, "Oh, I've never really tried it out," and then he takes her on the flight, right? Which I do not remember this scene being as long because
It's
it is so long,
it's so long.
and then we get we we get this inner dialogue of Lois talking to herself like, "Can you read my mind?" Oh my goodness, like,
It's
what
the lyrics to the song that was written by John Williams. So John like, that ba da 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 da, that's a
is it
song,
really?
and
Okay.
she's doing a spoken word William Shatner style reading of and that's why it rhymes, and
That
it's like
I was okay,
it's
that makes
bad
sense.
enough that so the song is, "Can you read my mind?" Like, it's ridiculous, and it's bad enough that she's doing this inner monologue thing, but then
Yeah,
once you realize it's rhyming, it's just crazy. It's
yeah,
insane when she's just doing lyrics to a song that rhyme about, like, "Up in the sky, you and I
yeah,
can't"
yeah.
like,
So
"Don't
weird.
why don't we fly?" Maybe I just am
Yeah,
like, "What are this is" and also, like, the physics of this scene make
make no
absolutely no
sense.
sense.
Yeah.
That he can keep her body afloat, like,
Yeah,
horizontally as
by
long as
holding her
he's
little fingertips.
as long as he's hanging on to her fingers, and I
Yeah.
guess this suggestion is that Superman's so strong that put he can, like but I'm still like, that doesn't she would still have to hold her body in that
Yeah,
shape. Like,
that's
I
what
just
I
like
thought
it
too.
just doesn't make any sense
No.
whatsoever.
I think at this point, it's like, this is the only way we can make 2 people fly, so
Well, but I also know that, like, this is one of those wire work sequences that was very revolutionary at the time,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you talked about how you're like, "A lot of these things really hold up." But there's this problems with the cinematography in this sequence, and it's that, like, they go to New York City at one point, so we're
Mhm.
assuming that they are traveling all the way from Metropolis to New York City. That's what's being implied is
Yeah,
that it's a
yeah,
long flight, that he's showing
yeah.
her how fast he is and how he can travel all around the world very quickly. But they're outside of the Statue of Liberty, And there's these like really high res shots, like aerial shots of the Statue of Liberty, where it's in
Yeah.
really strong focus. And then it cuts to like them on a sound stage with like superimposed in front of the Statue of
Mhm.
Liberty, and it's all like grainy and superimposed. And that switch is so jarring. It's so, to me at least, it's like,
Mm.
oh, it really like, and I know that the effects were limited at the time,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
to go from the super high res image to like this really grainy background image, constantly cutting between the two, emphasizes the artifice of the
Mhm.
flying so much to me. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It does. And he drops her at one point,
yeah.
and he's gotta save her. But this also, I just thought this inner monologue that she's having, half expected him to come in at the end and like, "Yes, I can hear you, Lois," and her being like,
And that was very weird.
Yeah. "Please
I've
don't
been
ever
li
talk to me again."
I've been listening to you this whole time, and that this is very strange.
It was such a, and it's so like, okay, she's reading the lyrics, but like, what it
It's
makes no sense with
again,
the story.
if the point here, Richard Donner, is verisimilitude, and if the
Yeah, yeah,
point
yeah.
here is for something that feels grounded and not like a comic book and not like a cartoon, we can do a sequence where Superman and Lois go for a flight. We can
Mhm.
do a sequence where they fly around town and he woos her that way.
Yeah,
Totally
yeah.
fine with that. Let's cut the inner monologue of song lyrics. Like,
Yes, yes,
come on, come
yes.
on, man. It
Very
is
weird.
a very 70s move, though. It's just like a
Yeah, it
very
is.
like 70s music video move.
Yeah.
And anyway, they get he drops her off back home, and kind of he's just like so charming as Superman, but also
Mhm.
like there is kind of like a nerdiness to
Oh, yeah.
Christopher
Yeah.
Reeve, where the Superman character also feels. Here's what maybe works is in the same way that Clark Kent is an act he's putting on, he's playing up the
Yeah.
nerdiness.
Yeah.
Superman is also an act. He's
Yeah.
playing up the charming, Miss
Yeah,
Lane.
yeah. Yeah.
And the real guy is somewhere in between.
Yeah.
He's well, and so I think that works. But yeah, then he flies away and Clark Kent shows up because apparently he and Lois had a date scheduled. And again,
I guess.
in the screenplay, I'm like, why did Clark plan it like this? Why did
Yeah.
Clark why would Clark undercut himself so, like, terribly? Why would Clark be like, "Hey, Lois, let's have dinner tonight," and have her say yes, and then be like, "I'm gonna have my own date totally ruined by my other personality." Like, I just like,
Yeah.
yeah, he just sets it up in a way where it's like, well, she couldn't possibly have a good time at dinner with you now that she just had that date with the other you. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't make sense.
yeah.
But I think after this point, right, they do the article, and then we go into this whole thing. I don't even think we need to get into this, which is Gene Hackman and the Otis and Eve. They like reprogram missiles, and like,
And this
again,
is
a
more
very weird.
Rocky and Bullwinkle, "Oh, sorry, boss, I thought you said," and I'm sitting there going like, "Why are you trusting Otis to do the
Yeah,
reprogramming of the missiles?" And he's like, "Otis,
exactly.
I got it." But he even says, he's like, "I don't trust you, Otis, so you need to," but then he's like, when Otis messes up, it's like, of course he messed that up. And Gene Hackman's like, "No, Otis, like, I'm gonna
Yeah,
punch you in the face, Otis."
and then he's
And
got
then
a black eye.
yeah, and then he's like,
Yeah,
"And then I'm gonna punch you, Eve, because I," and
yeah,
but it's like, okay, like, why are you having them do it? And then what's
yeah,
weird is when they have to redo it, he says to Otis, he's like, also, we have a scene before this where Gene Hackman reads Lois Lane's story, and from that, he
yeah,
learns
yeah,
all of this information about Superman, and that's how he knows about Krypton, and that's how he knows about
yeah,
kryptonite, and yada yada yada.
yeah,
Um, but we but when they have to redo the sequence where they're reprogramming the missiles because Otis messed it up the first time, he says to Otis, "Don't mess it up this time." But then he doesn't have Otis do it. He has Eve
Eve
do
is the
it.
one who does it.
And
Yeah,
again, I'm like, why does the screenplay have that line in there
yeah.
if Otis isn't the one doing it this time?
Well, and
And
then
also, why would he have Otis do it at all either time?
yeah,
Yeah.
but then also we get into this weird. They crash a car, and then Eve is just like sitting on the road, and then like all the military guys crowd around her, and they're like, pump her chest for a while, and then give her mouth to mouth. The guy's like, "All right." Then he's
It's
like,
just all
"Hey,
these guys who were
I'm
like,
not."
"Hey, there's an unconscious babe on the ground. Like, let's all assault her. And they're all
Yeah,
just
that's
like, it's,
basically what it
yeah.
was. It was like I was like, wow, cut this out of the movie because
Yeah. And like the
again,
one
this is
guy is
something that could be held. This is something that could be done in a montage.
totally. But I love how like all the guys are like, no, we can hook up with this unconscious woman that's on the ground that was just in a car accident. And then the
Yeah,
chief's like, the colonel gets out and he's like, ah, men, I think I'm gonna have to do chest compressions and then I'm gonna have to make out with this broad. And then like,
and he's
and then
like
like
about
one of,
face.
but like one of his like, one of his soldiers is like, "Oh, chief, I was gonna make out with her," and he's like, "No, you get out of here! I'm the colonel." And the guy's like all disappointed. He's like, "No, I wanted to
Yeah,
assault the unconscious woman." And then yeah, he's like, "Everyone about face," and all the men turn around so that it's just like,
it's so. First of
yeah,
all, it's completely unnecessary.
yeah.
And second of all, I'm like, what the crap is wrong with these dudes?
I tell you, this
Like,
movie gets more and more kind of buffoonish and ridiculous
yeah,
as
yeah,
it goes on. And it's
yeah,
kind of that thing where this is the stuff where I'm like, when everybody online just refuses to move on from this film, when they're all just
yeah,
like,
yeah,
it's the greatest superhero movie ever made, and no movie will ever be better than it. I'm like, go watch it. Be so for real.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I'm sorry. I know it's sacrilege to say this, but go watch it.
yeah,
Be honest. Like,
yeah, yeah.
every superhero movie made past the year 2005 is better than this movie. Like it
Oh yeah,
like
yeah,
it I anyway. Uh
yeah. But they
yeah.
redo the codes, and then we do have a. I thought this was pretty cool because Perry White is talking to Clark Kent, and then all of a sudden we hear this ringing, and Lex Luthor comes over and he's like, "There's only animals and one person in the world that can hear this frequency," and so that's how he gets Superman to come find him. Which I was like, "Oh, that's a cool little." He has a certain frequency that he can communicate with Superman in.
But also it's like the amount of information that Lex Luthor learns about Superman from this one Lois Lane article
Yeah,
that and like
yeah,
they're like we got to see the conversation that they had. Th- There's so much information in the article that was not in the conversation that they had.
yeah.
And it's just like now that this one article has been written about him, Lex Luthor knows everything about him. He knows that
Hmm.
he knows that he every single power that he has. He knows
Yeah,
every
yeah,
even the sequence where Lex Luthor like deduces that kryptonite would be he'd be allergic to it
yeah.
makes no sense.
No,
Lex
not at
Luthor's
all.
just kind of like, well, if his dad died in 1938, which is not what his dad told him. His dad told him that he
No.
died 12,000 years ago, but for some reason now it's 1938. So, well, if his dad died on Krypton in 1938, then shortly thereafter a meteorite would have crash landed, and that meteorite would be radioactive to him. And it's like,
Yeah.
why? What do you
How
what do
did
you
you get that?
how
Yeah.
but the movie's just like, that's literally how the information is presented, and it's like,
Yeah.
"Okay,
Yeah.
alright." But yeah, and anyway, so he goes to Lex Luthor's, you know,
Yeah.
uh,
Layer.
underground lair, and I kinda like this sequence where he, like, breaks through the door. It
Yeah.
reminded me of him showing up at LexCorp, in the James Gunn movie and
Mhm.
kicking in the door, but again, I like the version in the James Gunn movie a lot more. It's a
Well,
lot more
yeah. Yeah.
a lot cooler. And do you know they did that practically? I was watching behind the scenes. It's really cool to watch like the door exploding when he comes in.
Oh,
So that
cool.
it's awesome. Like they actually like blew the door up and it
No
looks really
way.
cool. Like, there's
Very
so
cool.
much cool behind the scenes footage from the James Gunn movie of all the things they did practically that are like
Oh, nice. I'll have to
really
check
cool
that out.
stunts. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, he goes in there. Lex Luthor tells him his big master plan, which is that he's gonna set a missile off on the San Andre
Saint
Andrea's fault
Andrea's fault. Yeah.
Andrea's fault, and he's going to create a new West Coast for America, and it's all land that he's bought.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to do another one in New Jersey, and I guess he's going to do I don't know what his plan is there, but
Yeah. I think it was just two different missiles to
make
make him choose.
yeah
And
make it
so
yeah
but he's like, "Oh, where's the detonator button?" And then he opens the chest and there's kryptonite and he's like, "Oh," and then like Gene Hackman just like it's on a chain and he just like puts it over his neck and then he like falls into the water and can't really swim and he's like barely hanging on to life and then he said he told him that the other missile is going to New Jersey and Eve is like, "My mom's in New Jersey," and he's like, "Oh, not anymore." Like and she gets mad at Lex, and then she goes and she saves Superman, which she takes off the well, before she takes off the kryptonite, she kisses him.
It's just a
Whatever.
lot of just weird stuff in this movie that's just it's just like very 70s where you're like, I
Yeah.
guess people were just hitting their kids
Yeah.
and sexual assault was like really normalized
Yeah,
yeah,
apparently.
you know?
Apparently.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Why can't I hook up with a good guy?" And he, like, touches her face and then just, like, flies away.
Yeah, but she also makes this is weird because she makes him
Oh,
agree that he's gonna save her mom first, and
yes.
she's like, "And I will believe you because you never lie."
Yeah.
And that's they made a point in the screenplay to be like, he never lies. But then in this whole final montage, we never see a scene where he goes and, like, saves Eve's mom. It's just like, I mean, he does divert the missile, but it's,
Yeah.
I guess that's it.
Yeah, that
But,
he takes
yeah.
care of that missile first.
Oh, okay, I guess that's it. Yeah, never
Yeah.
mind. So he
Yeah.
does fulfill that promise. I
Yeah.
guess I was thinking there would, like, be a scene where he would, like, check in on Eve's mom or something, but,
Oh, yeah, no. No.
no, that doesn't need to happen. He takes care of that missile first, and then he goes back over to the West Coast to take care of the other missile, and I do like that this sequence is showing in 1978 even, they're really trying to take a big swing at showing the true power of Superman with this final
Mhm.
act, that, like, he's
Yeah.
fast enough to even after these warheads have been launched, and even after he just recovered from kryptonite night sickness, he can fly to the East Coast, throw a missile into space, turn around and fly to the West Coast, stop
Mhm.
another missile, save a bunch of people, you know, or
Well,
I guess
yeah, and
the other missile
he doesn't stop the missile,
no, yeah,
yeah.
the missile hits, San Andreas Fault goes out, but this is crazy. I actually kinda like this effect of him going underground and
Mhm.
lifting up, like, a tectonic plate of the Earth
Yeah.
and putting I'm like, "That's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool idea."
Yeah.
You
It
know
is kinda funny though because, like, there's a you see this huge line form in the San Andreas Fault, right? And he goes under and he starts pushing it back up, and then, like, where it all fell down, it just, like, comes back up. It's
Yeah,
just
and
basically they took the footage and reversed it, like
it's like, that's not really how that would
yeah,
work.
that's wouldn't be what happens, but yeah.
There's another moment that we didn't talk about when he's flying to go to Lex Luthor's, lair, he jumps out of a window at the Daily Planet, and he's in a
Oh,
suit as
yeah.
Clark Kent, and then
Oh my gosh.
he just turns into Superman, and it's like, "Wait, I thought we established in this film that he does have to change his clothes, but he can
Yeah,
just do it really fast." Because
yeah,
like, that's him when he goes into the revolving door, I always assumed what that was he's changing clothes and he's moving really
yeah.
fast in
Yeah,
the
that's what
revolving
I
door.
assumed as well.
But then now they're just like, "Nah, he just sort of, like, magically goes, like, Superman clothes." And, like
Yeah, it made
and
no sense.
and I just was kinda like, I don't think that's one of his powers
No.
is to just change clothes instantaneously. I think he can change clothes really fast, like,
Yeah,
but yeah, but whatever. Uh, yeah, and you're right. This has that same vibe of him just sort of like doing something that's like, "That's not how that works." But
yeah.
there's a lot of that in this final act.
Oh,
There's a
yeah,
lot of
there
like,
is.
"That's not how that works."
Yep.
But there's like, like I like him catching this school bus on the Golden
Yeah.
Gate Bridge.
Oh, and the Golden
Uh,
Gate Bridge, this miniature, looks awesome.
yeah.
Like, I was like, because there are the cords, that are holding, like, they
Mhm.
snap, and I was like, "Man, that looks really, really good."
There are
Um,
some miniatures in this sequence that look really bad though. Like
yes,
his
that's what I
house
was gonna say too. The houses, like, I'm like,
the
"That's just a
houses
little bit
below
of
Hoover
water."
Dam are it's pretty bad. It's
It's
like
really bad, yeah.
those look like Monopoly houses. Like that's
They did.
like
It's like
that's yeah.
and there's, like, some water splashing, and I'm like, "That's not that much water."
No.
'Cause water's the hardest to simulate. They do really good on some of them. Like, the dam looks really good, and when it breaks, it looks really good, but, yeah, once they get into the houses and, like, him pushing the rubble, I'm like, "Those are pebbles."
Yeah. The
So
the 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 houses are pretty bad. I like him, being the train track, like, because
oh,
of
yeah,
the
that was
earthquake,
cool. Yeah.
a train track breaks, and I like that he, like, uses his body to, like,
Yeah.
be the missing piece in the track. I'm like, "That's pretty cool." Like, Superman just being like, "Yeah, let this train just run over me. It
Yeah.
doesn't even affect me. It doesn't phase me." Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of, like, in this whole sequence, him really showcasing
Yeah, his
the full
powers.
the full force of his powers. And
Mhm.
that's really cool. But a
Yeah.
lot of it is because of the time and the constraints, it's pretty silly. And again,
Yeah.
if you did a lot of this stuff in a modern movie, even with effects that look cool, people would tear it to pieces on the internet. Like
Mhm.
they would absolute like, the plot holes are there's so many just things that, like, make
Yeah.
no sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the biggest ones is the final one is during this whole sequence, Lois Lane, her car gets stuck and a fault line opens up and her car gets swallowed. And I do remember being like traumatized by this footage as a kid. I
Yeah.
remember watching this as a little kid and watching the footage of Margot Kidder like have dirt dumped on her face and like it's
Yeah.
it's like very even today I was like, this is pretty gnarly to put an actress through to like put
Oh,
her
yeah.
in the thing and just pick, we're gonna just dump like tons and tons and tons of dirt and rubble on you.
And they really did use a car smasher to smash the car.
Yeah.
So she is in a confined space with dirt falling on her and a car being smashed. And
Yeah.
I mean, this effect is really, really cool for the movie, but I'm sitting there thinking, man, that must have sucked to film. Like
Mhm.
that had to be so scary and claustrophobic and like
I thought that as a
horrific.
when I would watch it as a kid, it would, like, really hit me weird because I
Yeah.
think it's so visceral to
Yeah.
watch, like, an actual woman be, like, struggling for her life as this car
Mhm.
is actually squishing her and dirt is being dumped on her face. It's like, ugh,
Yeah.
like, everything else feels so cartoony and like, "Ah,
Yeah.
Superman's
Yeah.
just sort of flying around," and, but then that's, like, very
Yeah.
yeah, and, kinda
And
dark and visceral and yeah.
yeah, it's scary. It's a good effect, but she does die.
She
She
dies.
dies, and he gets a really mad scream, he screams really loud and he flies up in the clouds, and then Marlon Brando, I guess this is where they got Mufasa from, because Marlon Brando just shows up in the clouds. He's like,
But
"My
this is
son."
but this is the weird they try to do this thing where they try to, like, pit John Kent against Jor-El, where John Kent is kinda
Mhm.
saying, like, you're here for a reason, and that reason is not
Yeah.
to score touchdowns, and he's hearing that voice of his
Yep.
adopted father, and he's also hearing the voice of Jor-El saying, "It is forbidden to interfere into
Yeah.
the affairs of humans." But I'm like, this is the weird thing is Jor-El says this, like, 3 different times in the movie that it's
Yeah.
forbidden to interfere in the history of
History,
mankind.
yeah. Yeah.
But I'm also like, but then he can't be Superman. Like I
Yeah.
like the none like I don't see how he can do any and it's like this decision that he has to make where he's like, I know that my space dad said I'm not allowed to interfere in history, but I don't care. I'm in love with her. I'm in a time travel. But I'm just
Yeah.
like, but you already have interfered. You've already changed history irrevocably by just being here. By
Yeah.
just being a guy who flies and who can catch helicopters and who like
Yeah.
history is changed forever and like Lex Luthor's plan would have succeeded without you if you
Yeah.
hadn't been there.
I think, the way that I interpreted that was that you shouldn't go back in time and change things, because that would change history. Not necessarily the future. You're going to change the future, but you shouldn't go back in time
But
and alter history.
that weirdly presupposes that his dad knew that he was
Yes,
capable of reversing entropy and going back in
it
time.
does. Yeah,
And
it
it's like
does.
I don't know how you could possibly think that that's even like, but I guess maybe we could say that in the 12 years they were in space, he was like, by the way, if you were to fly fast enough, you could reverse
Yeah,
the
the rotation of the
the
Earth.
rotation of the Earth and go back in time. Don't do it though. It's
Yeah,
forbidden.
yeah.
And
Basically, yeah.
but also like this is not how time works.
No,
This is
I was like, that's not how it works. You can't like
you
that
don't
makes no sense.
time does not go backwards because you reverse the
Yeah.
rotation of the globe. It
You
would
basically
massively
just killed everyone on Earth by
yeah,
doing
it would
that.
be an extinction level event if you were able to reverse the rotation of the
Yeah,
Earth. It would not
yeah,
time would continue going forward, but it would just be
yeah,
mass devastation across the entire planet. But
yeah,
in this world, they just I guess whatever people knew about physics in 1978, whoever consulted on the screenplay was like, "Yeah, sure. He goes back in time by turning the Earth the other way," and he goes
yeah,
back in time just enough to like get to before she died and then turn it back forward again and go
yeah,
down and save her. And this pissed me off. I don't know if you noticed this that like all of a sudden the crack that was in the road that she fell into just
yeah,
doesn't happen.
yeah. I don't
It
he
just doesn't,
reinforced that more when he went underground, I guess, I don't know.
but that's not like all
Yeah,
that's
it
shown is
doesn't
that
make
he
any
just
sense.
goes down and pulls her out of her car And then, like, I was like, "When's the crack gonna come?" Because
Yeah.
presumably everything still happens the same way
Yeah.
that it happened before, but just this time he gets her out of the car. And then Jimmy Olsen shows up and they sort of do this bit where like both Lois and Jimmy are mad at Superman. Lois is like, "Well, you got oh, you're just showing up right when I
Yeah,
don't,
yeah.
right
Yeah.
when I don't need you." And Jimmy's like, "Wait, it just dropped me." But I'm like, the whole time I was going, "Where's the hole in the ground
Yeah.
that she fell into before?"
Yeah.
He doesn't need to get her out of the car if the hole's not gonna show up, and it's just
Yeah.
such weird, like, weirdly bad writing to just
Yeah.
be like, "This time it doesn't happen." It's like, "Okay, well,
Yeah.
if this time it doesn't happen, then he doesn't need to be there." Then,
Mhm.
like, he
Yeah.
doesn't need to
Yeah.
save her if it doesn't happen this time.
Yeah.
It's just I can't believe anyone would read that and not go like, "Oh, guys, like,
Yeah.
remember the fault line he
Yeah.
needs to save her from that." It's just I don't know. It's
I know.
weird writing.
I thought
Yeah.
also he was just gonna like move her out of the way and then the car would fall in and he's like, "Oh," say some quippy line. That would have been good. But
"Got here just in time, Miss Lane," you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
something like that.
something like that, but, like, no, it's just like, nope, in this alternate reality that he's created now, I guess there is no fault line
Yeah.
anymore. But then it's like, then why do you need to be here at all,
Mhm.
Superman? Aren't there other people you could be? I don't, I whatever.
Yeah.
And he goes and gets Lex Luthor and Otis, drops them off in jail, and he
Lex
fly.
takes off his wig.
Lex takes off his wig and shows everybody that he's bald. He flies away, and that's the movie.
Yep. And the warden is like the warden at the prison is like, "Superman, thank you. You have saved the earth again." And he's like, "Well, we're all a part of the same team." And I was like, "What? What was that exchange? And who is this warden that is like giving Superman all the praise? Like, shouldn't it be somebody else like Perry White or something? Like, why is it this random warden?"
Yeah, I just feel like this movie, like, it doesn't make any sense why Clark Kent is Superman. It
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense why he decides to be Superman when he decides to be Superman. It's just so random. It's just like on a random
Yeah.
night, he's like, "I guess tonight's the night." And then it
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense how like the whole world knows who he is and knows everything about him within like a week. They're just like, "Well,
Mhm.
he's here now, and hello, Superman." Like, like
Yeah.
it's just like a thing where I'm like, if verisimilitude was the goal,
Yeah.
it's it's there in certain aspects, but
Yes.
mostly I just find this to be a weirdly written film where I just am
Yeah.
like, I think most people who consider this to be like the holy grail of superhero movies just haven't watched it in a really long time.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I know that like we're gonna get annihilated. At least I am in the comments for daring to speak out against this movie. But again, I would just say like go watch it and tell me
Yeah.
why I'm wrong.
Yeah.
You know, like
I think you're totally right. I think a lot of people see this with rose-colored glasses. The reason that I do like this a lot is because of what it did. But it's like the first when somebody's doing the first of something, usually like we really revere it, and then everybody works out the kinks. And that's kind of how I see this. There's a ton of kinks in this, but there's so much that was done well. They casted the movie extremely well, and they took it seriously in the sense that they created a world and they made it. It was campy and silly, but it felt very cinematic, and they did make a lot of improvements. So I'm looking at it from there, but like when you just look at it from a perspective of like filmmaking and like especially if you're using it by today's standards, it's nowhere near as good as the things that
yeah,
we've done that
no
lately.
one no one had ever done it close to that good
Yes.
before.
Yeah.
Like it was for this genre and for this character and for, it had never been done this lifelike, this believable before. And
Correct.
now we've gotten so good at making characters in these movies feel more like human beings and have motivations that seem like they make sense and have
Hmm.
actual character arcs and actual character development that you go back and watch this and it's like, no, this is, I don't know, like it's pretty clunky and
Hmm.
and just lots of weird moments that don't age well and and it's unnecessarily long, lots of sequences
Yeah.
that go on for way
Yeah.
too long. Lots of things that they don't really hold up or play the same way. So let's get into our scores for
Let's
this
do it.
movie. As you know, on the podcast, we give scores out of 10, 10 being the best. We give a score for technical rating, just how the technical achievement of the film, the nuts and bolts of the filmmaking. We give a score for the ending, how well they stuck the landing. We give a score for rewatchability. We give a score for cultural impact and relevance, or cultural significance. And we give a score for our subjective feelings on the film. Kramer, what is your technical rating for Superman the movie from 1978?
My technical rating is a 7. And I'm looking at it from the 1978 perspective, because of the technical achievement that they did create. I mean, the visual effects look great for the time period. They did some pretty cool stuff that, obviously revolutionized. I mean, this came out right after Star Wars. So this is obviously kind of like the renaissance of visual effects. It's like setting the course for where visual effects will go. And I think this is one of the very influential movies for that time period as well. Probably gets overlooked because of Star Wars, because Star Wars did so much more in many ways. So the technical achievement of that is really, really great. I and the way that they cast was really good. It's crazy that they got Brando in it. It's crazy that they got Gene Hackman. Christopher Reeve is a great. He looks great, like just his, and he only got paid, from what I read, like $250,000 for both 1 and 2, which is crazy that they didn't pay him that much. But it opened doors for him, right? And but all the bad things about it too. There's a lot of bad things about it. So it's not getting a higher rating because of the weird writing, the crazy, weird slapping children and all that weird stuff, but also just the structure isn't really that tight. So,
Yeah, I gave it a 7 as well, technically. And pretty much every point I can give it is for what they were able to achieve cinematically and with the effects at the time.
yes,
Again, though, I'm holding it up to its contemporaries, and I'm going like, I think Star Wars looks better. I
it
think
does.
that I think that
Yes,
I think the effects, I think the miniatures in Star Wars play better on screen. I think
they
that,
do.
there's like, I don't know, like, so I still go. I know for the time this was pretty jaw dropping stuff. It's not really something that you go back to and go, this holds up. That you're like, it's like Jurassic Park is a 30-year-old movie. You can watch that and people say it all the time. That T-Rex scene holds up. Some of
Yes.
those raptor scenes really hold up. And
Yep.
you go like, still looks great, still totally plays. And you know, we're just
Yeah.
well past the time when you could ever say that about this film. Like there's just
Right.
effects, like him running fast next to the train might have been cool in 1978. It's
Yeah.
just not cool, and it hasn't been cool for a long time.
No.
And it's impressive for the time, so I have to rate it for when it was made, and I give them 7 for that. I dock 3 points off for all of the things we talked about in this podcast, all just the weird choices with the screenplay, all of the things that don't make any sense, all of the plot holes, all of the weird character motivations or the lack of character motivations,
Yeah.
all of the sort of
Yeah.
it's just kind of like a thing where I'm like, the construction of this at a writing level is just bizarre.
Hmm.
And there were like 4 different people who collaborated on the screenplay, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it kind of feels like that. Kind of feels like a patchwork. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
my technical rating. I didn't want to give it too low of a score because I know it was kind
Yeah.
of a
Yeah.
technical marvel of its time, but I also didn't want to give it too high because it's got a lot of
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah.
And how about the ending?
The ending I gave a 6. I thought that the time travel thing is like, what? But like you said, the actual sequence of the entire ending was a lot of fun. Seeing the powers of Superman and kind of like seeing all that he can do, especially with the constraints of that time period. So that's fun. So I feel like it's kind of like, like I don't want to give it too low, but I also didn't like the time itself doesn't. That's not how time works, and the fathers kind of competing wasn't really set up as well as it could have. So
Yeah, I gave it a 6 as well. It's fun for the exact same reasons. Fun to see Superman kind of go ham and go full strength and go all over the place, saving everybody and doing all these cool things. The time travel thing is something that I'm like, sure, whatever movie. In 1978, I'll go with you and just say, whatever. That's how
mhm.
physics work, I guess. But what I can't go with you on is if you're gonna say we're traveling back in time so that he can save Lois from the fissure that opened up and
Yeah,
swallowed
yeah,
her car, you can't just be like, now the fissure's not there. Well, then what are we even what? What do you mean? Like,
yeah.
I just am like, I like that's the thing where I'm like, okay, the time travel is already dumb, but that this is like the reason why he has to do it is to stop her from dying in this event. And now you're like, well, now the event's not going to happen. It's like,
Yeah.
well, okay, then why is this scene even taking place? I don't, um, whatever. So a 6 for
Yep.
the ending. And again, I'm trying to be like generous here because I know that
Yeah.
people feel very strongly and very emotionally about this film. Uh, Rewatchability.
Oh, this is a hard one. I gave it a 5 because, like, it's fine to rewatch it, but it is slow, and the pace is really it's really felt this time. I was like, "Whoa, man, this like, please move the scenes along really quick," which makes it hard. But the fun sequences you can rewatch, so I don't know, 5 seems appropriate.
I gave it a 5.5 just to be like, it's just over the halfway mark of like, there's enough nostalgia here with John Williams music. There's enough like
Yeah.
moments that visually that are sort of tattooed on my brain that I see them and I go, ooh, that's, or the, and there's definitely like enough shots that I go, that's a cool shot, or that's a well composed image.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah,
That's kind
yeah.
of, that there's like that it's like over the halfway mark, but just so. But
Yeah.
boy, it like as time goes on, I think it just gets rougher and rougher on successive rewatches.
Yeah.
Cultural impact for this film.
Cultural impact, I gave a 10. I think this movie is extremely influential. As we said kind of at the top of the podcast, or I think you could make a really good argument for the fact that this is one of the reasons why we have superhero movies as popular as they are today.
Yeah, you and I are in lockstep on this one. 10. I don't see how you could possibly give Richard Donner's Superman a lower score than a 10 when it comes to its cultural impact, because
Yeah.
that is the biggest lasting legacy of this film, is what it did to the culture of filmmaking, what it
Yep.
did to the legacy of superhero films and superhero stories, and what it did for this character and the cultural consciousness
Mhm.
is can't be understated. But that's kind of like the best thing you can say about the movie, is
Yeah.
just that it really stuck in people's imaginations and in people's
Mhm.
minds. But
Yeah.
when you actually just sit down and evaluate it on its own merits without the rose-colored glasses, it's, it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
kind of it's kind of a bad movie. So what's your subjective score?
My subjective score is a 7. Because like there's again, looking at it from the 78 perspective, there's a lot of really great things. Like I've talked about, the casting and the uh Christopher Reeve is a, looks good, and some of the stuff is fun. There's some cool sequences. So there's something about it. And I think it, besides the structure and the weird things that they have in there, there's still a lot of good in here.
I want to give this movie a higher score, but it's my subjective score. It's just
Yeah.
what's
Yep.
true in my heart. And I'm giving it a 6, and that's the most generous thing I can do.
Yeah.
And what's true is it's probably lower, but I'm trying to like be like, because I love this character so much, and
Yeah.
because there are enough moments that I can latch on to, I'm like, sure, a 6.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
what it means to the culture and everything. And like and John Williams music is definitely worth a few points
Oh
just on
yeah.
in and of itself.
Yep.
But like when it comes to Superman movies, I'd pretty much rather watch any movie from this current century than this movie. I'd pretty much rather watch Superman Returns, Man of Steel, honestly, Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice, or like before, like because all of those movies make more narrative sense and move at a more enjoyable clip than this
Yeah.
film.
Yeah. They
And so just for me, subjectively getting to the end of it, I was like, boy, I kept thinking the movie was going to get better, and it kind of just kept getting worse. And then it ended, and I was like, and that's it, huh? Like
Yep.
when it started out, I will say, when the opening credits started playing, I was like, yeah, you know what? This movie's awesome. I'm so
Yeah.
excited to watch this. And then like we went to Krypton. I was like, yeah, this movie's so cool. And then like, Marlon Brando shows up as Jor-El, and I was like, yeah, this movie rules. And like, like I'm seeing like all their like cool and I'm just like, man, this sequence is going on a little long, but that's all right. This movie's awesome.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
like pretty quick into the movie, I was like, like once we got to that teenage kid, I was like, I never really liked that kid's face, and I don't know why. And then just like he's like running next to the train, I'm like, oh, geez, that
Yeah,
never really
yeah,
liked that. And
yeah,
then just it, but I was like, but then Christopher Reeve's gonna get here, it's gonna get cool. And it's like, yeah, there are some moments where I'm like, I like that moment, I like that moment, but the other moments are most of the movie. The other moments where it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
what are like
Mhm.
are most of the movie. And
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know. I would just say if you disagree with us, go watch it and see how it
yeah,
holds up and see if your memory is tricking you or not. It's kind of like we did the French Connection on this channel one time, and I watched that with my dad, and he was so excited. He was like, "Oh, the French Connection!" He's like, "This is a classic." He's like, "I haven't seen this in years." And we got to the end of the movie, and he just looked at me and was like, "I think we've gotten better at making movies." And I was like, "Yeah."
yeah,
I was like, "Yeah,
yeah,
we have."
yeah. Very true.
um, and that's there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong
No.
with respecting the place that this movie has in history and
Yes.
respecting the impact that this movie had and it's what it did to change cinema and
Yeah,
still acknowledging that by modern standards it's not great. Um,
yeah,
and
yeah,
even by the standards of like measuring it against a lot of its contemporaries at the time, it's like there are better
yeah.
movies from the 1970s.
So true.
Um, but yeah, so that's our thoughts on Superman the movie from 1978. If you want to keep up with what we're doing on the show, we are still in superhero land and we're going to the Fantastic Four next. That's the next big thing happening. So we're going to go see that in theaters. Go see that if you want to keep up with us. We'll obviously be posting a spoiler-free review and our full thoughts with spoilers. So if you want to, know what we're talking about, that's what it is. Like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.